Good morning. We're going to get started here if you guys want to find a seat there. Appreciate everyone coming out this morning. All right. So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call this school district deliberative session to order at 9 a.m. A few items here that we need to go over, and then the rules and decorum for today. Safety, there's no smoking anywhere in this building. And please take a moment to notice the exits in the building in the event of an emergency. To begin, in recognition of the labor and sacrifice of those who created, defended, and refined the privilege of a democratic government under which we assemble this morning, can we please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag? And then as we conclude our pledge, please remain standing for a brief meditation passed down in Deerfield history by Joe Brown. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing. And this is from Joe Brown. I suggest that we open this meeting by standing in silent meditation, asking guidance in our conduct of this Deerfield Town School District meeting that may prove an effective self-government for us all. Guide us in our voting by a sense of purpose and human understanding. In our hands today lie the business affairs of the school for the future. Grant us the sense of fairness to allow all citizens to participate regardless of experience. Help us to express ourselves with restraint and dignity so that we may work together harmoniously for the well-being of our town in the coming year. So let it be. Please be seated. Welcome to the first session of the 2024 Deerfield School District meeting. My name is Dan Holdridge. I'm your school district moderator. This deliberative session of the 2024 Deerfield School District acts as a legislative body for determining the final form of warrant articles to be voted on the March 12th ballot. We want everyone to feel welcome, and everyone in attendance will have the same opportunity to speak and be respectfully heard. As your school district moderator, I appreciate your willingness to support our efforts to bring about a fair and smooth-running business meeting. I appreciate your understanding for my efforts to get clarity and productivity throughout our session. A Deerfield voter card was issued to you when you went through the voter check-in list. I will use these cards for voting, so please don't lose your card as we cannot issue you another one. Also, if you can please turn your cell phones off or into vibrate mode. If you need to make a phone call, please just go outside just to not interrupt the meeting. Appreciate that. And then any exception, obviously, would be our fire and police personnel who are on call. I'll begin with the introductions of our school district officials, and then we'll go over some housekeeping items to ensure a smooth and orderly meeting, and we abide by the laws of the state of New Hampshire. Our school district council here today, Allison Tamposi. Our school board, our chair, Kendra Cohen. Our vice chair, Ellen O'Donnell. We got Zach Langlois, Nathan Oxnard, and Danielle Palmer. Superintendent, Patty Sherman. Our principal, Ms. Kristen Withy. Vice principal, Mr. Brian Grieve. Our business administrator, Amber Wheeler. Our school district treasurer, Eric Gross. Municipal Budget Committee representative, Maureen Quinn. Assistant school district moderators, we have Fran Menard and Kevin Berry. Our school district clerk, Kayla Skankard. And we have supervisors of the checklist, the supervisors of the checklist, Joanna Waring, Christina Pretorius, and Maureen Quinn. Our inspectors of the election, we have Phil and Joan Bilodeau. And Police Chief Gary Duquette and Fire Chief Matt Fisher. So we'll move on to our rules and purpose for today's session. So ladies and gentlemen, this is the SB2 deliberative session of the 2024 Deerfield School Meeting as defined in New Hampshire RSA 652:16-F. You will act as a legislative body to determine the final form of warrant articles that will be voted on at the Deerfield Deerfield Town Hall for the March 12th town election. All articles by law must be placed on the ballot. Each member who wishes to vote in this meeting should have checked in with the supervisor of the checklist and should have received a voting card and a sheet of yes and no ballots. If you are a registered voter, and have not checked in, please do so now. Are there any individuals present who are not registered voters of the town of Deerfield? Though you are not permitted to vote, by Deerfield tradition, you are permitted to participate in the debate. Without objection, we'll continue this tradition today. The rules for this meeting are as follows and are updated as of 2024. Our meeting today is for the transaction of all business other than voting by official ballot. The first session shall consist of explanation, discussion, and debate of each warrant article. Since Deerfield operates via Senate Bill Number 2 town meeting, all warrant articles, amended or if not amended, will automatically be placed in the ballot. There is no need for motions to place articles on the ballots unless they are amended. Our business today is to consider each warrant article and, within the limits of the law, determine the details of those articles to be voted by official ballot on the March 12th second session. Amendments to those articles are in order and will be voted on at this meeting. However, at the conclusion of our deliberative on each article, we will not vote on the passage of the warrant article. Instead, the chair will instruct the school district clerk to place the article on the official ballot. In the event you want to make a motion for an amendment, please be sure to write down your amendment information on the slips provided, and they're back on the desk right next to Joanna back there. And once acknowledged by the chair, read your suggested amendment into the microphone. Then kindly bring the written amendment information to the moderator, who will have the school district clerk record them for the minutes. Our goal is for legislative body here this morning to be efficiently on the same page with all the information as discussed. The chair will read each article, then recognize a representative of the warrant article author to speak. Then the floor will be open to all. If you wish to address the meeting, please approach the microphone. The chair will recognize members at the microphone in turn. When it is your turn to speak, please step up to the microphone and speak directly into it. The microphone is voice activated, and your remarks are recorded so that the clerk may make an accurate record of this meeting. All remarks must be confined to the merits of the pending question or to the questions of order or privilege, and all remarks must be addressed to the chair. All remarks need to be addressed to the chair. When recognized, please state your name and address to begin addressing the chair. Each speaker, if not the author of the warrant article who is presenting the article's information, will be allowed 3 minutes to express his or her views. We have a helpful timer here that's going to help us in case we get into our talk. So 3 minutes, please, to express his or her views. You may speak as many times as you wish, but all members who wish to speak will have a first turn before any has a second turn. The overriding principle in all cases is fairness. A speaker may address the current pending question, or they may move to close debate, but may not do so in the same turn. That means if a speaker argues for or against a motion, he or she may not then conclude the remarks with, "and I move the previous question." We adopted this rules many years ago, and with the support of the Assembly, will follow in this meeting. A secret ballot per RSA 40:4-A must be conducted when requested by 5 members in writing prior to a hand vote. Such request must be for a specific vote, not for all votes in this meeting or all amendments on this article. The 5 members must be present and stand when called to verify they are in attendance. The secret ballot provision exists to offer secrecy and is not intended to be used as a tactic of delay. If you wish to request a secret ballot, please approach the microphone and, when recognized, make the request. Then pass the written request to the moderator. Secret ballot forms are available on the side tables where you are seated. And they're actually on that table right next to Joanna. Otherwise, votes will be by a show of voting cards. If the chair cannot judge a clear majority, he will move to a division. Likewise, if a member is not satisfied that the result announced by the chair is correct, they should request a division. Division will be a count of raised hands. 7 members who question any non-ballot immediately after it's announced may request a written ballot vote. If the margin of vote by division is narrow, the moderator may also move to a ballot vote. The 5 voters may request a recount of a written ballot vote, provided that the vote margin is not more than 10% of the total votes cast. In this case, a recount shall take place immediately following the public announcement of that vote per RSA 40:4-A. If there's something you wish to accomplish here, but are uncertain on how to proceed, please ask. You can do that at any time during the meeting at the microphone, or you can approach any of us during a recess. Similarly, if during the meeting something is not clear to you, please rise to a point of inquiry using the microphone and addressing the chair, then ask for an explanation. and this is important. As a legislature, we will be discussing the warrant articles above us. Those discussions will be respectful of everyone's opinion. We do not cheer nor applaud when someone says something you agree with, and we do not boo nor groan when we disagree with what is said. Please be respectful of all comments and opinions as we would want yours to be respected. Please keep personalities out of the debate. Please use terms such as the previous speaker, the selectman, or the budget committee member. All questions and comments are to be directed to the moderator. There is no requirement that anyone must yield to answer a question posed to them. Today, we need to be very mindful of this. Finally, the role of the moderator is to fairly organize and regulate the meeting according to the rules agreeable to the legislative body in attendance. Rulings of the moderator are subject to appeal by any member. An appeal must be made immediately following the ruling. A second is required. The ruling and appeal will be explained to the legislative body. Then the members will vote either to sustain or to reverse the ruling. We may take a break after lengthy articles. However, our goal is to conduct business efficiently for the respect of your valuable time here today. Also, this meeting is being recorded for viewing at a later date. We'd like to thank the Malloy folks for being here again today, for their wonderful support. So that we'll have this, it's going to be recorded and viewing for a later date to be posted on the town or school's website. And then thank you for being a part of today's deliberative session and participating to help Deerfield become a bright future for generations to come. We hope to see you all again anytime between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. on March 12th for the town election to be held at the town hall. Again, that's March 12th. Put that in your calendars, between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. At the town hall. And so we're ready to begin with our warrant article number 1. So.
Mr. Moderator, I have a parliamentary inquiry.
Yes, sir. Please state your name and address.
Don Gorman, Mountain Road, Deerfield. Excuse me. Since most people have difficulty speaking in public, and without proper training, it's next to impossible to have a conversation in 3 minutes. So would the moderator explain, since this is a very important discussion, a legislative discussion, could you explain why there is a severe timed 3-minute restriction on people who maybe do not know how to express themselves that well in public, and 3 minutes is extremely, extremely difficult. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Sure. So the 3-minute rule has been Deerfield tradition, and it allows everyone the opportunity to present an idea in 3 minutes. If they'd like to follow up with additional 3 minutes, they can, but this allows everyone to have an opportunity to speak. If folks need some additional support, we can take a recess at any time, and I can help them with that. So thank you there. Moving on to warrant article number 1. Okay, so I'm going to just read the beginning of our warrant articles verbiage here. To the inhabitants of the school district in the town of Deerfield qualified to vote in district affairs, you are hereby notified to meet at the Deerfield Community School in said district on the 10th day of February 2024 at 9 o'clock in the forenoon to deliberate upon the warrant articles below. This session shall consist of explanation, discussion, and debate of each warrant article. Warrant articles may be amended subject to the following limitations. Warrant articles whose wording is prescribed by law shall not be amended. B, warrant articles that are amended shall be placed on the official ballot for a final vote on the main motion as amended. And C, no warrant article shall be amended to eliminate the subject matter of the article. An amendment that changes the dollar amount of an appropriation in a warrant article shall not be deemed to violate this provision. Voting on warrant articles will be conducted by official ballot on the second session scheduled for March 12, 2024 at the Town Hall, 10 Church Street, Deerfield, New Hampshire, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. The first warrant article reads as follows. Shall the Deerfield School District raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth in the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by vote of the first session, for the purposes set forth therein, totaling $18,065,861. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $18,868,836, which is the same as last year with certain adjustments required by previous action of the Deerfield School District, or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, X and XVI to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. Majority vote required. School board recommends approval 410. Budget committee recommends approval 730. And we have, if passed, the new estimated tax rate will be $19.48 per thousand, which will result in a $2.20 increase over the previous year's school tax rate. Note warrant article number 1, operating budget article, does not include appropriations from separate warrant articles.
Mr. Moderator?
Yes, sir.
Point of clarification.
Sure.
I have the book that was passed out this morning, and it shows the school board recommends approval 3-1 to 0, not 4-1 to 0.
Okay. I might have an older printout.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Yep, sure. Okay, so with that in mind, we'd like to introduce our Maureen Quinn from the NBC. Maureen? She's going to introduce the budget from the NBC.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks, everybody, for being here. As the vice chair of the Municipal Budget Committee, the Budget Committee recommends this budget for the school district moving forward. We appreciated very much the work that the school board put into crafting a responsible budget to meet the needs of the school and the students. And the only change that was made by this Municipal Budget Committee was the addition of a third high school bus, and that is in the amount of $75,530. That was the only change that was made by the Budget Committee, and otherwise, we present this budget for discussion.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Appreciate that. I'd like to introduce our chair of the school board, Kendra Cohen, to do her presentation. Follow-up.
Hi, everybody. Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us here today. I did do a brief presentation. There are hard copies, I think, in the back somewhere if anyone wants to look at those. I wanted to give a brief breakdown of what the budget is. I did this presentation at a school board meeting in December, and I'll give the same caveat now that I gave then. This is my interpretation of the budget breakdown. You and I could look at the budget and say, this maybe should belong under maintenance, this should belong under something else. So this is intended to be a general overview of the different categories in the budget. I think it's a helpful way to sort of look at our 200 lines in the budget and think about what we are paying for as a school district. So I'll give everybody a second to look at that, but that's sort of just background information. All right, so everyone's favorite topic, budget increases. So the school board proposed a budget to the NBC of $18,791,468, and this was after cutting approximately $80,000 from the prepared budget. So we carefully went through and made some modifications that we thought were appropriate. $74,000 was added back in by the NBC for the third high school bus. So I prepared a breakdown here of the increase for the operating budget and the default budget. The biggest things that account for the budget increase this year, the first and largest is for special education. If you want specific details, we can't talk specifically, but there are, if you look at the budget, you can see which lines specifically had the biggest increases, if it's something you're interested in looking in. The second was high school tuition. So, as you know, last year, there was a warrant article to approve a contract for Concord High School, which would have resulted in a cost savings to the town. That was voted down. The school board took action this year, respecting the vote of the town last year to have high school options. The school board worked very hard to come up with a solution that would be respectful of the wishes of the town. for high school options. As discussed, throughout the year, that would unfortunately come with a price increase. We have given the options to the students, so the students will be allowed to choose from Concord High School, Co-Brown, Northwood Academy, and Pembroke Academy. The current 8th grade students have selected which schools they would like to attend next year, and so this budget is based on those numbers. There are also a few students who have indicated they would like to rejoin the school district because of the high school options now offered. So those numbers are also factored in here to the high school tuition line. The third category of largest increases was from benefits, fringe benefits for staff at DCS. And then the final category is transportation. And that's the presentation. That's it. I'm sure there are questions.
Thank you. Okay, so, is that on? Can you hear me okay? Okay, so that opens up for our discussion for warrant article number 1. So, good morning.
Good morning. Andrea Hoteling, Lakeview Lane. Could we go back one screen, please? Presented above, or as you can see, is something that says the difference between this year's operating budget, operations only, and the default budget is $2.122225 million. And I would like to amend that or adjust that in your thinking. The 2023-24 default budget last year was actually $16,046,611 because $700,000 that's included in that number were the $700,000 of warrant articles. So if we look at the actual operating budget, it has gone up to $18,868,836 from $16,046,611, which is actually a 2.822225 amount of increase. I have to say, I have sent 2 emails to people on the board pointing this out ahead of time, so I hoped that they would be prepared to discuss what is the other $700,000 increase in the operating budget. I put together a few things that show that teacher salaries are a big component, an extra $230,000. Food service is up by $72,000. SAU expenses are up by $49,000, and there's a grant that's up by $159,000. I believe the grant will probably bring in some money, that we may have expenditures, appropriations, but it would probably be covered. But again, we're not talking about a $2.1 million increase. We're talking about a $2.8 million increase.
Thank you. Others to speak on the budget, please.
Again, thank you, Ms. Moderator.
Good morning.
Good morning. And good morning to the school board and all the attendees. I'm probably not going to be very popular today, but there are some things that need to be said for the town. That's a very, my motion is to, excuse me?
Your name?
Don Gorman. Donald. Yeah, Mountain Road. You're welcome. No problem. I am making a motion to reduce the budget by 10%, which would be approximately reduce it to $16,978,500, roughly.
Okay, so there's amendment for a reduction of the budget by 10% to $16,978,500. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, is there a second on that motion? There's second, so it's open for discussion.
Open for discussion. In all of the figures that are up here on the board, I want to say I tried to go to the school board as an agenda item to present these numbers and have a legitimate discussion. Unfortunately, I was asked for an agenda item so it could be fully discussed. That was refused. When I did show up to the meeting, I got the 3-minute egg timer, ding-dong, with no discussion. I could make a comment, but there was no replies back from the school board. So I don't know how a citizen taxpayer gets to communicate with the school board because they have this self-imposed barrier that there's no discussion. Anyway, my question in regards to the numbers, by the way, these numbers are not from TikTok, Facebook, or Ding Dong Incorporated. These are coming from the State Finance Committee and/or the Department of Education. My question is, where did the $20,409,174 go that you got last year? And now you're asking for another $18.7 for additional operating costs. I don't understand. There is not a mention of anything that is returned to the Deerfield School Board. These numbers are for Deerfield, not the state. They're from the state. They're not for the state. These are for the school board in Deerfield. $20 million. Where is that money being spent? Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion on the motion for the 10% reduction for $16,978,500? Any other discussion on that amendment? Seeing none, if you could get your voting cards out, please. I'll give you a moment. I know it's your first time today. Okay. So in regards to amendment number 1, the request is for a 10% reduction in the amount of $16,978,500 would be the new number. All those in favor of this reduction, please signify by raising your voting card up. Okay. Okay, thank you. Those who oppose, please raise your hand. Okay, so the amendment's defeated, so we're still back at the original amount. Okay, it's now open, the article is back open for further discussions.
Suzanne Steele, Harvey Road. I just have a clarification. Looking at this wonderful presentation, thank you for that, and looking at what the amount is in the warrant article, there seems to be a discrepancy in the amount in the warrant article. The warrant article says the proposed is $18,665,861, and in your presentation, it's $18,791,468. So I just wanted the warrant article to reflect the correct amount.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Kendra?
thank you so much. In the presentation, I should have made this more clear. It's the amount that the school board proposed plus the amount that was added by the MBC. I should have subtotaled that, so sorry. But if you add those two numbers, it will hopefully add up to the right number.
The first two numbers.
Okay, further discussion on the budget, please. Good morning.
Andrea Hoteling, Lakeview Lane. I have a question about the comment that, or notice that says what the new estimated tax rate would be. Does that need an amendment, or if it needs to be changed?
Amanda, would you want to, or Amber, would you want to?
No, I'm looking at the one, was looking at the one today, and also...
Which one? I'm sorry, for the, what was the amount?
It's just the estimated tax rate. I would like to adjust that, so if it requires an amendment, I've written one up.
So, so that, in that one was the $2.30 increase? Is that the
Well,
one
no,
you're
it's the line that says the new estimated tax rate, excuse me,
Of 1958?
would be 1958.
58.
On the Municipal Budget Committee, I have documentation that the latest estimated tax rate, which I think is appropriately done with total appropriations, $18 million, 868, whatever the correct operating budget is, not the default, using that figure and then subtracting out estimated revenues, because that will be the effect on the tax rate.
Okay.
Anyway, the latest document we had at the school, or at the MPC, showed an estimated total rate of $18.30. I agree with that. It is made up of two pieces, however, because that estimated rate included warrant articles. The actual operating budget, if you take the 868, 836, or the operating budget, and you divide it by the total valuation, property valuation in the town, which is $783,183,000, whatever, you come up with a tax rate of $17.73 for operations.
Okay.
Last year, the comparable figure, just for the operating budget, the $16,046,611, if you divide that by the property valuation, that was actually $14.73. You may all remember our total tax was $15.63, but 90 cents of it had to do with warrant articles. So the difference is, I have written up an amendment that says the new estimated tax rate will be $17.73, which will result in a $3 increase over the previous year school tax rate.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion to adjust the estimated tax rate, thanks, Andrea. Adjust the estimated tax rate to be $17.73, which will result in a $3 increase over the previous year's school tax rate. Any legal concerns on this?
So is it accurate? I mean, I think if you would, the one that was already done?
One that is in the back.
I mean, if you're amending it to make it correct, that would be one thing, but if the district is permitted to put the estimated tax rate as calculated.
Okay.
So I would say it can, if it's incorrect and it needs to be corrected, then that can be amended. However, if it's not, that's the district's notice.
Did you want to speak on that behalf?
I believe the number that is on the warrant article is correct,
Okay.
as estimated.
So if the business administrator believes that's the number, then that's the number that we need to go with?
Yes, because that's the
Okay.
district's notice of what the estimated tax impact would be.
Okay, so, but now as far as the motion that was made and what have you, so how would that parliamentary-wise?
So you can rule that it's a motion that would make it, that
It would
an illegal-
invalid- it would invalidate it,
However, if the body wants to override that ruling, they can do so.
What
pursuant to
what
the-
would be the outcome if it turns out that this number is published and it's incorrect? Would the DRA flag it? How does that work? Just so,
It's an estimated figure.
Okay.
So it's to provide information. I mean, the body has voted that you must include that.
Okay.
However, if that is something, that could be something that if you check it and it's correct, then that's how it has been calculated by the
Okay.
district.
Mr.
thank you.
Moderator?
Yes, sir. Can you state your name and address?
Yeah,
please?
sorry, Kevin Verville, McCarran Road. So it's an interesting discussion that we're having. I believe that the amendment is certainly germane and allowable by the body. My sense of the room is that it won't pass. That being said, you're saying that if the number is incorrect, then we've done something wrong. But it's an estimate. So how can, an estimate is only correct more or less out of dumb luck, right? Where an estimate is a good faith guess of what it is. I heard the maker of the motion. She's run through the numbers. I've worked with her for several years on the budget committee, and I know her to be a very, very keen accountant. And I have every faith in her number. And so for that reason, Mr. Moderator, I would say, since it is an estimate only and there really is no correct, incorrect, that we would vote on the motion as proposed. Thank you,
Okay,
Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. So we will take a vote on this, and with that in mind, and further discussion, please.
Yes, I would actually like somebody, to take a minute and actually do a calculation to take the total operating budget of 18 million, I'm small print here, so it's hard to read. there's operations other than warrant articles. 18,865,861. Then remove the estimated revenues of 4,976,757. These are numbers given to us by the school, leaving $13,889,104 as amount to be raised by taxation. If you take that into account based on the total property valuation, I rounded it up to 183. It's really 182,692. When you do that division, you get $17.73. If somebody can show me a calculation that doesn't get $17.73, I'd be happy to withdraw my motion.
We can take a recess if you'd like and go ahead and allow these folks to make some calculations, if that's okay. Yep, please.
I don't have a perfect memory.
Richard Bovair, Church Street. As I understand the previous speaker's method of calculating it, it involves removing certain monies and warrant article monies and so forth. Was that the method used for the previous year? We need to be sure that we're doing apples to apples, not apples to pineapples.
Okay.
So I would like to know how it was calculated before, and are we comparing the same methodology for calculating the numbers from this year to last year?
Very good point, yeah.
I want to make sure that we're looking at consistency. Thank you.
Okay. Kevin?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Kevin Vervel, McCarran Road. So I'm not so interested in fruit this morning. I'm actually interested in factual information. So if a mistake in the way that we've calculated this in the past may or may not exist, I don't see how it's germane to the discussion this morning. It seems quite sound to me that we take an operating budget of spend, we subtract out our estimated revenue. That difference is what we will raise by taxation. That amount divided by the valuation, I agree, should give us the anticipated tax rate as created by that budget. Whether we did it differently in the past, I honestly don't think is germane, because the math sounds fine to me. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. All right. We're going to take just a quick 5-minute recess tops. And we'll go ahead and reconvene here in just a few moments. Thank you. Hi. Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. Okay, we're going to get restarted. Okay, good morning. Okay, so first of all, I just want to say thank you. This is how a great town meeting works. When we get together, and if there's questions and stuff, we get together as a town and try and make some good progress. So with that in mind, I'd like to have our finance manager, Amber Wheeler, go ahead and just describe a little bit about what she's doing with the calculations and how it comes to, and we'll go from there, and then we'll take a vote. Can you put a microphone in front of her, please?
I actually just did the calculation with speaking with Ms. Hodling, and I still come up to 1957. Exactly what we just discussed 1 second ago. I just did that calculation of the exact method she used, and I came up with 1957.
Okay. So can you just...
Or, yeah, it's rounded. It's a rounding. It's
So
1958.
So just how did you come to that number?
So
Just
I took
please.
the total appropriation, I minus the revenues, and then I divided by the assessed valuation.
Okay.
Plus the estimated tax rate, state education tax rate.
Oh, well, why would you put the state education tax rate in there?
Because that's
This is
part of the
just-
tax rate setting.
But that's not our operating budget. That's a separate piece. Last year, we had a regular tax rate of school tax rate of $15.63, and then we had an education tax rate of $1.65. So if you would like to, why would you, I don't even understand why you would have the state education tax rate in our operating budget. Our operating budget stands alone.
We are giving a total estimated tax rate of what the tax potentially could look like next year. When they do that, on the tax rate setting, on the tax sheet that the state of New Hampshire gives us, it gives us the school portion and the state portion, and that gives the total school taxation. So that's the representation that I have on my sheet. That's the representation that I have given every year in the last 9 years, and I believe prior to me being here, it was done very similarly.
Okay, so if we add $1.65, to the 1774, $1.65, that gives us 1919. What did you have?
It's 1958.
1958. What did you have for last year?
Did you take out the $150,000 for the warrant article in your amount?
Okay, I'd have to go back to 1759. I'll add $1.65.
If you look at warrant article, let me put my glasses on so I can see. Warrant article 5, it's 19 cents for that 150. So if you were to add that to that, you're going to get to approximately what I have.
I'm sure, please.
Mr. Moderator? So I'm a little confused. It sounds to me like double accounting. When you're referring to Article 5, you're talking about this year's warrant, is that correct?
I was just using that as an example.
Okay, fair enough. So are you saying that the 19-cent impact from Article 5 is baked into the 1958?
It is not. It is separate with her calculation. So when I give my revenues, I have to subtract out any warrant articles that are going to receive revenue in any other fashion. So if it's coming from a trust fund or it is coming from unassigned fund balance, that does not become part of their revenue for taxation. So I have to subtract that out in order to come up with warrant article 1.
Clarifying question, if I may, Mr.
Please.
Moderator. So the revenue from Article 5 of this year is included in the estimated revenues of the overall budget that we're discussing in Article 1. Is that correct? We're assuming that Article 5 will pass?
We're assuming that, I'm assuming that Article 4 will pass because that is
Yeah,
coming from
okay.
unassigned fund balance.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you. So we include $150,000 from Article 4 as potential revenue, not knowing whether or not that article will pass.
It
But
becomes a null net value because if you spend the 150, if you're moving the 150, you're receiving the 150, so it nets to zero.
So then it has no impact.
It
on
has
the
no
tax.
impact.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Okay, any final comments here on the amendment, please?
Mr. Moderator,
Yes.
Phil Bilodeau, Nottingham Road, move the question.
Thank you. Is there a second? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and take a vote here. If you can get your voting cards out again. The vote is for amendment to, amendment proposed, number 2. And it would read to change the last line there where it says, if passed, the new estimated tax rate will be $17.73, which would result in a $3 increase over the previous year's school tax rate. All those in favor of this amendment, please. Yep, please.
Point of clarification. Was the $700,000 in warrant articles removed from that budget because we cannot carry forth that money?
It was. Yep, thank you. All those in favor of this amendment to changing it to $17.73, please raise your card. Okay, put down. All those opposed, please raise your card. Okay, that motion is defeated, so it'll remain the same. Okay, thank you. All right, now back to the original warrant Article 1 operating budget. Open up for further discussion, please.
Morning. My name is Zach Langlois, 109 South Road. I want to make it clear I'm standing here as a citizen and not as a member of the school board. Earlier today, we heard somebody try to cut 10% from the school district budget. 10% from that budget, when you have to pay for special ed, when you have to pay for high school, when you have to pay for transportation, means we're cutting staff. Plain and simple. That's what happens. That comes right out of the experience that your kids have in this building. We are never more than one of these meetings away from destroying public education in our town. And I think it's important that we keep that in mind when we're making those decisions. That being said, I do have one amendment to make. So, Mr. Moderator,
please.
I would like to amend the operating budget for the Deerfield School District to $18,791,468, a reduction of $74,393. That would be to remove the third high school bus that was added by the MBC. The school board made it very clear during the conversations regarding school choice that we would not have a third bus to go to Co-Brown. We don't have the money for it, folks. Adding it into the budget right now only inflates an already hard pill to swallow. The town asked for school choice. I understand that. It's in there. They got it. But increasing it more and more isn't going to do us any good.
Is there a second on the second? Probably move open for discussion, please. Mr.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Moderator. Kevin Verville, McCarran Road. It's not they that got it. It's we that got it. The town voted and has agreed to this. So it's not they, it's us. Okay? So I have agreed to publicly support the proposed budget as long as it includes the third high school bus. Is there going to be a third high school bus? Almost certainly not. You know why? Because there's not enough drivers. You have to provide transportation, pre-K through 8. There is no obligation to provide high school transportation. And unless there is miraculously a glut of drivers next fall, there will not be a third bus. But what I do know is if there is a glut of drivers and we remove this from the operating budget, there cannot be a third bus. There cannot be. And so it should be inside the budget. If this motion passes, I would urge all of my friends and neighbors to vote against the operating budget because the default budget has the third bus in it. And so if student transportation of Deerfield High School students is important to you, like it is to me, if this motion passes, you should reject this proposed budget. It's my opinion, so I'll state opinion when it's opinion. It's my opinion that the school board is so desperate to get a proposed budget passed, to get out of the default budget conundrum that the town's been in, that we're making the operating budget smaller than the default budget. If you value education, if you want to spend more money in the classroom, if you want to spend money for direct student services, and this motion passes, or even if it doesn't, you should vote no on the budget because the default budget is larger and it'll invest more money into public education in Deerfield, not less. Not less. So I would urge everybody in this room to vote no on this amendment, because the possibility of that bus is in the best interest of our children, of our students. And then if it does pass, then I would strongly urge you to vote no on the budget, spend more money on public education in Deerfield for the benefit of our children. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. Who seconded it for me? Their name? Oh, it was Herman. Thank you. Herman Pretorius. Thank you. I just got to make sure we get the names of who makes the motions and seconds. Thank you. Yes, please.
Kayla Stankard, Fieldstone Drive. I just have a question about the bus. If there's an additional bus approved, would that go to DCS?
So that would be a board discussion. I anticipate the board would probably make sure that DCS has all of the buses they need before giving another bus to high school, because we are legally obligated to provide busing to K through 8.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speakers, please, on the proposed amendment.
Don Gorman, Mountain Road again. I have a no numbers question. I noticed on the recommendation, the school board recommends approval 4-1. Could I inquire who the one was and why they voted against the budget?
Okay. We've got to stay to the amendment. Can we ask this following the amendment? We got to just stay on the amendment at the moment. But if we want to just ask that,
Mr. Moderator,
yes, sir.
point of order.
Yeah.
If the person that voted against the budget voted against the budget because no, I'm sorry. I confused myself.
Okay. No worries. No. Do you mind if we just handle the amendment, or do you need that information for your discussion about this bus?
Well, again, we're in this world of silence where there's no communication.
Okay.
But somebody on the school board, according to this, maybe they didn't, I don't know. But according to this, there was 4-1 on the school board was the vote. So my question was, who was the one and what was the reason?
Okay.
I don't know the reason, so it could
Okay.
be the school bus,
Okay.
basketball team, who knows?
Okay, thank you. Okay. Next speaker.
Can we get an answer to my question?
They're not obligated to answer. Would you like to answer?
Can I speak to
Please.
that? Is the updated form? You don't have the updated form. The updated form is actually 3-1, not 4-1.
The new packet today has that.
Has the 3-1.
Yeah.
3-1. That being said, I did vote against the school's budget this year. It was due to the increase in cost with the high school.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Yep, thank you. Next speaker, please.
Greg Whitmore, North Road. So the initial high school enrollment numbers and town surveys indicate that Co-Brown will have the majority of high school students as we move throughout the next several years. So I would suggest that that third bus be kept in just in case we can get that, drivers for it, because, it seems like if we're having the majority of students go there, that's where we should be sending a bus. So I'd suggest people vote against the amendment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Just a point of clarification, for the 8th grade class this year, the majority of students elected to go to Concord High School.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker. Good morning.
Hi. So
Can you
Bobby
state your...
Andosty.
Oh, thanks.
Bobby Andosty, 5 Brown Road. I'm not going to be liked for this comment, but our school buses have a lot of room, like a lot of room, between even just Deerfield students. Like, it's maybe half to 75% capacity. I don't know about the high school right now, but I do know that once students reach driving age, they start to get their own cars. I know that the economy is really weird right now, but it's something to think about, that when it comes to high school, are we going to even fill those buses? If we put it in the budget, we're prepared for the, best case scenario that we're providing that transportation. But I don't know if it's necessary. And Kendra mentioned that there are a majority going to CHS, but that's by how many? And it's only this year, right? So what's happening this year. There's 56 students? 8th grade?
55.
There's
45.
Only 45 students this year graduating from 8th grade. And then as they move to those upperclassmen, are they going to need a bus? There's a lot of unknown for putting that large amount in the budget. For one, Zach, I might agree with you. So I don't know, just something to think about. And 2, I do want you to also please clarify that, yes, this year, 3 more kids are going to CHS than Co-Brown. 3. Okay, so that's 3 students. But the year after that, I know the people in town, and Co-Brown is up for the rising. So just to let you know, we might save money on diesel because Co-Brown is a lot closer. So those huge bus invoices might fluctuate.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that's an assessment that the school board does every summer in terms of bus routes and who's going where. So yes, the school board looks at it annually. If there, at some point in the future are, the majority of our kids going somewhere else, certainly the school board will look at the school buses and see what makes sense to get our students to school.
Thank you. Next speaker, please, on the amendment.
Linda McNair Perry, 14 Range Road. I am in support of the amendment. I am fearful that there will be at least one person, and I don't know how many people will follow the Pied Piper, but that will vote against the proposed budget, which would be a damn shame. But that said, my daughter went to Co-Brown. If you had a bus that had gone to Co-Brown, I would have still driven her, because one bus to Co-Brown would have kids on the bus for an hour and a half if they had to cover the whole town. So I'm nobody, unless you're at the last stop, is going to want to put their kid on a bus, the one bus that goes to Co-Brown, when it's 20-minute, well, from my house, 20-minute drive, and I'm south and it's north. So I support the amendment. I don't think, maybe 2 years from now, if we have 150 kids, whatever, going to Co-Brown, that's a different discussion. But for this year, I support the amendment.
Thank you. Next speaker on the amendment, please. Good morning.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Mr. Moderator, are we expecting to run a surplus or a deficit this year?
I don't know. Is there any update on?
Currently, we are projected 300,000 over budget for the year.
So that's a deficit?
Correct.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate that. So we're projecting to run a $300,000 deficit this school year, and unless somebody's crystal ball knows something that mine doesn't, next year will prove to be a challenging year. And so to say, quote, it'd be a damn shame if somebody voted against the budget when the proposed budget is already smaller, less money. I'm sorry, my wife would kill me for saying smaller. The proposed budget is less money than the default budget, and we wanted to insulate ourselves further from the risk of what a budget deficit actually means to the community. And knowing that the budget is a bottom line budget. So the $75,000 that sits in a third high school bus line could be shifted to cover shortfalls in other lines, such as perhaps special ed or other things. It seems to me that just that logic would suggest that one would be better off voting against the proposed budget to get the larger school budget to insulate against the deficit. And then if the economic outlook next year is rosier and somehow there's a plethora of drivers, perhaps we would have that available. When I look at it and I'm facing down a $300,000 deficit to encourage people to vote for the smaller budget, it seems like a sea change from the school board. So I, for one, am going to vote against this amendment. And to be quite frank, I will probably vote for the larger budget, knowing the current financial status of our school district. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. Any other final comments on the amendment?
Mr. Moderator?
Yep. Please.
I guess some of the comments have made it sound like we as a board have worked towards creating budgets that somewhat artificially or create these surpluses just in case something like that happens. And that is not the approach that the board has taken. The board builds a budget with the intended anticipated costs in mind. And so, yes, we are anticipating a deficit this year because changes happened this year that we didn't anticipate. And so part of the reason that the default budget is significantly larger next year is that we've incorporated these changes and now we anticipate now we know we have information, so it's the circumstances, so it's a more accurate budget.
Okay.
And so creating this picture that we're padding our budget so that just in case we need more money is not how we approach building a budget.
I'll also add that the 300,000 that's over projected currently is largely related to special education. We have a special education trust fund for this exact situation, so we do anticipate being able to transfer that money back over. So I don't want anyone to panic.
Thank you. Others? All set? Okay. Ms. Hutchinson, please.
Rebecca Hutchinson, Lang Road. My kids are long gone from the school, so I don't know how many buses you have, where they go. Could somebody give me like the 2 or 3 minute explanation of what we do now for kids for high school? And my gut tells me I do want us to provide school buses for high school kids. I know we aren't legally required, but I think we should do that. I've heard stories about kids who drop out of school because they can't get to their high school. But I just need an explanation of what we offer now.
Yeah, currently there are 2 school buses that go to Concord every day. And then I think there are 6 now. We should have 7. So we budget for 7 for DCS. We currently have 6 buses for DCS.
And 2 for high school. And so aside from, well, let's see, the NBC put the money back in. So if that passes, if it stays in, what would you anticipate you would be offering for buses at the high school level next year? Can you imagine that at this point?
It's a great question, and certainly something the board would have to discuss. We would likely look at DCS first. If we need 7 buses for DCS and there happened to be an extra bus, I anticipate the board would strongly consider putting a 7th bus at DCS over having another bus for high school, but I can't speak for the whole board. We haven't taken any action on that.
Could I ask one more follow-up? I'm sorry, but so now you say you need 7 buses and you only have 6. What's the ramification of that for parents and kids? What happens to those kids?
We currently have a lot of families who do drop off and pick up every day. Certainly some people enjoy that or have made it part of their routine, but I think a lot of people would, prefer to have space on the bus. And if there were more buses, the bus rides could be shorter. I think the routes could be shorter.
Thank you.
Mr. Moderator?
Yep, please.
So a little bit of a follow-up to your question. So we have run as few as 5 buses when we've been in a pinch. There has been a problem finding drivers for our transportation company for as long as I've been sitting on the board. 6 buses works well for DCS. It's a number that works. We have budgeted enough money for a 7th bus for DCS. So the reason why I recommended pulling that 3rd high school bus out of that high school line was throughout the entire school choice conversation, it was made very clear time and time and time again that for next year, we would not be sending a bus to Co-Brown. Every family was made well aware of that. They were made aware of it in surveys. They were made aware of it at every opportunity. We have high school transportation is a tricky thing. We are a very large town, and getting buses routed all the way from one corner of the town to the other is a bit of a challenge. I anticipate that next year the board may look at the attendance numbers and make changes based upon where the students are going. And at that point, that would be the appropriate time to discuss whether or not we want to, or they want to, in that case, add a 3rd bus for high school. Right now, we have still budgeted an additional bus that isn't being utilized in the current budget anyway. So there's actually money for a bus that isn't there outside of this fact. But it was made clear throughout the entire discussion with what was going to happen with those high school students next year that there would not be transportation to Co-Brown. It was made very clear time and time and time again. And so adding additional funds into the budget is putting more stress on the community that's already stressed about the budget. There's increases coming on the town side. There's going to be significant increases coming on the school side. We need to try to control what we can, and this is an item that we frankly can control.
Okay, thank you. The next speaker.
I'm sorry. And one other thing, passing a budget does allow us to realign all of the lines in the budget to more accurately reflect where we want to spend the funds.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, Ashley Langlois, South Road. Just in agreement with the amendment, we have, my husband and I, we're a pair. We have a daughter that rides the school bus, and on any given day, there are 1 to 2 people in a seat. So the fact that, to even have a conversation about a 3rd high school bus seems like an absolute waste. The buses are empty.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker, please. And this is on the amendment. Thank you.
Greg Whitmore, North Row. So it sounds like we have a debate between function and preference. So if the elementary school can function with 6 buses, but the preference would be to have more buses, then, I keep hearing a school board member say, we absolutely said we would not send a bus to Co-Brown. Why? Thank you.
Thank you. Other speakers?
Mr. Moderator?
Yes, sir.
Kevin Rowe, McCarran Road. Mr. Moderator, how much money is in the special ed trust fund that we're thinking about expending to pay for the shortfall this year?
Let's see if we can find out for you.
Mr. Moderator.
It was brought up as part of the funding. It was brought up by the chair of the school board. It's Jermaine.
It is in the back of the packet.
Rough number?
360 is my memory. 325.
Excellent, thank you. So, Mr. Moderator, it's interesting that we're staring down a potential $300,000 budget shortfall. We have $300,000 in our special ed trust fund, so don't worry about next year. We have money in the trust fund to carry it. But then what happens? What happens next year? And I know we're going to talk later about reloading those trust funds, one from surplus, although with a $300,000 deficit, it's hard to imagine there's going to be $150,000 in surplus, and then the other $150,000 is from taxation. And so even if that passes, if the projected costs remain similar, not the same, but even similar, that's still going to leave us $150,000 short in the trust fund that we're going to rely on this year to carry us over. So why we are trying to race to the bottom, meaning a small proposed budget amount, when we're staring down potentially very high special ed costs, makes no sense to me. And so pulling another $75,000 from a budget that's already smaller than the default, to me, financially makes absolutely no sense. And so I would say vote no on the amendment. Thank you, Ms. Moderator.
Okay, any final comments on the amendment, please?
Andrea Hoteling, Lakeview Lane. Could somebody explain the current contract that we're operating under? We have it with some transportation company. What number of years is it responsible for? And I assume the 10 buses are all included.
Yeah, so we have a multi-year agreement with Dale Transportation for the 10 buses. They only invoice us for the buses that we are using, so we're not paying Dale for buses that they can't provide.
Okay, what year was that contract?
First year of the new contract.
First year.
First year of the new contract?
Okay. So it's a multi-year contract?
It is a multi-year contract.
Have we, how many years is it contract for?
I believe it was 5.
5?
4 or 5.
4 or 5, okay. Mine has to do with this school bus business, but it has to do with what's in the default budget. RSA 4013C says contracts. In the default budget, you may have a contract that is previously approved in the amount so approved by the legislative body, that's us, in either the operating budget authorized for the previous year or in a separate warrant article for a previous year. Most multi-year contracts, such as our collective bargaining agreements, we put them in a special warrant article and we approve them, and then they are part of the default budget. Can somebody explain why the default budget here would include anything? The last time we actually approved a budget was 2019-20. In that year, there was explicit information in that budget about a 5-year contract for buses, and the last year that was covered by that was 2021-22, and there were specific amounts that were approved. So I agree that we as a community approved that. Since then, I have not seen either a separate support warrant article, and we certainly haven't approved an operating budget, so I don't understand how the default amount can agree with the proposed regular budget. Default budgets is a really sore point with me in that this is one example, but there are many items in this budget where things have been carried forward in default that are the same as operating, and they don't meet the definitions under the RSA. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the amendment that was proposed to change the default budget number to $18,791 468, which is the reduction of 74,393, the operating budget, excuse me, on 18,791,468 with a $74,000, $393 deduction, or reduction. Is there any other comments on this? Other than that, we'll go ahead and take a vote. If you want to get your voting cards out, please. Okay, all those in favor of changing the budget by the reduction amount of $74,393, please raise your card. All those in favor of reducing it. Okay, thank you. All those opposed? Okay, it's pretty close, so I'm going to go ahead and just do a quick hand count if we can. Could I have assistance? Yeah. Okay, and so what we're going to... We're gonna
do you want to do that?
We're gonna do a hand count just to make sure we got the correct, accurate number, please. So, okay, so. Okay, thank you. So if we can have all those in favor of this amendment, reducing the budget down to $18,791,468, please signify by raising your voting card high and hold it up until the person comes and counts your card. Make sure you're looking at them to make sure they got you.
Can I ask for a point of clarification here?
Please.
Would the default budget also go down then?
No.
Okay, so the default budget is incorrect according to law right now, and now you're making what I would call a one-year increase, or one-time decrease. Also, under the law, it says if you have an expenditure that you're decreasing, the default budget should go down.
Oh, okay, number of yeas? Okay, got that. Okay, all those opposed to this amendment, please raise your card and please hold them up high so they can count.
Could you read the amendment again, please?
Sure, it was to change the budget, to reduce it to $18,791,468, which is a $74,393 reduction. That's what they're voting on. Okay, and the results are, all those in favor the number was 42, all those opposed 21, so the motion passes. Okay, so that we have a new operating budget number there of $18,791,468. We're now opening for discussion on further operating budget discussions for warrant article number 1 as amended. Is there any other further discussions on this warrant article? Yes, ma'am. Oh, sure. $18,791,468. Sure. Yes, ma'am. Good morning.
Good morning. Claudia Libas, Maple Avenue. I have a couple of questions on the much-discussed new high school plan, and I'm hoping that you can help me. The numbers that are here for students, is that this year's numbers or next year's numbers or?
Yeah, so in the budget is the numbers for next year, so starting in September or August, whenever the next school year starts.
And are students, are the contracts with the schools based on these numbers? Are we giving these districts firm numbers that we're pledging that we're going to supply to them?
The contracts don't have any requirements for number of students that must attend. Students have the option, and we haven't sort of pledged any number of students to any of the schools.
Okay. And does the school board have a plan or the way you're putting it to parents to ensure that our tax dollars aren't going to pay for some amount of money that will be supplied to each student for this choice they'll have so that they might not go to Trinity or Bishop Brady or something?
The students get to select which school, and then the district pays those schools directly. So the money doesn't go to the families to pay for tuition. The school pays the tuition directly.
To those 3 schools.
So the 3 schools that we've contracted with.
Right. So I guess I would just caution to the school board to look around, because Concord is right now pulling down their mall and replacing it with hundreds and hundreds of condos. Condos mean students, and so I think the attendance rate, the number of students that Concord is going to be looking at supplying education for, is going to dramatically increase. And Concord, I worked in Concord for quite some time, and they will have absolutely no problem whatsoever saying to little old Deerfield, you can't guarantee the numbers to us. I'm sorry, we need those slots for our own kids. So I would just say that information like that is the kind of thing that Concord looks at very, very carefully, and I don't hear that coming out of Deerfield, so.
And just as a point, that will be particularly relevant when we get to Article number 6. So yes, I agree with you.
Okay, well,
Okay.
it's said.
Thank you. Any other comments for warrant article number 1 as amended?
Morning, Mr. Moderator.
Good
Kevin
morning.
Verville, McCarran Road. So the difference between the default budget and the proposed budget is now $77,368. That represents 0.4% more money than in the smaller proposed operating budget. Given that we are looking at running a $300,000 deficit this year, looking at the fact that it is unlikely we are going to be able to replenish our special ed trust fund to the level required if spending continues to be similar next year, I would suggest that it would be a folly to vote for the smaller proposed budget in March, and I would encourage my friends and neighbors to vote no on the proposed and vote in favor of the larger budget, especially if student transportation is important to you, because the default budget does indeed have the third bus. Based on the current fiscal condition of this district, I think it's ill-advised to vote in favor of this article. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. Any final comments on warrant article number 1 as amended? Yes. Good morning. Come on.
As amended?
Yeah, we've amended it.
The warrant article.
The warrant article.
Okay,
Yep.
great. Hi, Mary Ann Clark, Old Center Road. Can you just go back in that presentation to the slide that has the check marks on it?
For the high school?
Keep going, yeah, keep going. The one with the check marks.
For the
High school,
contract?
yeah.
Okay. We haven't gotten there yet, but that's okay. We'll skip ahead.
Okay, so I'm just taking a look at this, and because this is what drove some of the changes that we're talking about in the budget.
In the budget. Mhm.
And just for this, we can look at this and say, okay, this is what drove some of those changes. It's more or less an unfunded mandate, the way we've interpreted it. Now, can we go back to the slide that has the 4 items on it that are driving the increases? No, that one. So the first one and the third and the fourth one, did the board have any control over those amounts? Can you make adjustments to the first, third, and fourth?
Special education, definitely we can. And most of the benefits are contractual with our employees under the CBAs. So generally, no, we don't have much control over those 3 categories.
Okay, so which leaves you with the control around the high school tuition line.
Correct.
Which has increased over 800,000. Can we say that some of the increases in special education were also driven by that high school tuition or the high school choice decision?
Yes.
And we had anticipated, if we had passed the contract, roughly a $90,000 decrease. So we can safely say that the decision that you have made around high school choice is really adding about $1 million to the budget. Is that correct?
That's accurate.
So if $1 million to the budget roughly equates to, for the average home, about a $500 increase a year, correct?
Probably a little more.
A little more than $500 a year for every house. In the first year, we've implemented high school choice for one class, which is 45 students. Not all of those have chosen, and most of them have stayed with the school that we had a 20-year agreement with. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Please, if you need to speak, you got to come up to the microphone. Thank you. Yep, thank you.
Hey, Bobby Ann Dostie, 5 Brown Road. Just to let the people here know that the town did vote on school choice, so that already happened. So that was already said and done, and that's what we have now for it. I'm extremely confused, and I don't know if it's just because it's Saturday, but I don't understand why the default is way more than the one you're trying to get voted on. Like, why didn't, if the default, I know this sounds so stupid. Okay.
It's not stupid.
If the default is a lot more, why didn't you just budget what the default is? Like, does that make sense?
Yes, so
Okay.
it does
Good
make
question,
sense.
thank you.
And it is very confusing. So the default is the same as the last year's appropriations plus any legal changes, contracts, et cetera. So there are monies in the default that don't reflect our current spending projections. So, you know, the school board has removed things from the operating budget. We made $80,000 of cuts. Some of those are going to stay in the default budget because they were an expenditure from the last budget.
So last year, in default, like last year, we spent more than we are proposing even with high school choice.
No.
No.
Then I don't
So
understand this
last
at
year's
all.
default budget,
Can I just possibly? So when you look at last year's default budget, we're contractually obligated or legally obligated to provide high school education to all of our high school students.
Yes.
And we're legally obligated to provide special education services. So
Yes.
in default, special education increases become part of this year's default. The high school tuition becomes part of this year's default because it is a legal obligation. So
okay,
last
okay.
year's default being 16 or whatever it was $1 million approximately does not bear the burden of the increases that occur this year that are legally mandated or contractual.
Okay, all right, sorry, thank you. All
the
right.
number is on this slide, so you can see the total 23-24 default budget.
Okay, that hence the increase. Okay, thank you so much.
No, that's helpful, thank you. Okay, any other speakers on the amended warrant Article 1, please?
Kimberly Black, Meeting House Hill. I know in the original proposal, you had listed the number of students going to each school. I don't see it in this operating budget. Can that be told to the district?
So in the initial budget presentation, yes. So we did a number of surveys trying to discern where the 8th grade students were going to go. In those surveys, I think it was usually 60% said they wanted to go to Co-Brown, 40% wanted to go to Concord. When it actually came down to students making the selection, it turned out that over 50% were going to Concord. I don't remember the exact breakdown. I think there were, of the 45 students, I think 20 are going to Co-Brown and 45 are going to Concord.
Okay, so that's the number in the budget for this year?
If you look at page 2, on the top of page 2, there is a head count for where we believe the students are going or where they've enrolled.
2 of what?
And that would
Page
be
2
for
of the
the,
packet you have.
that would be for the all 4
Yep.
years, correct? So that
So
doesn't
that's
break
next
down.
year, because we're budgeting for next year. So next year's budget, we currently have 37 students budgeted for Co-Brown and 156 budgeted for Concord High School.
That's freshman, sophomore, junior.
That
and
is total
seniors,
students.
Right, yeah.
That is the number of students that we know where they're going. We know that at the moment, 156 were going to Concord and 37 to Co-Brown, and that's what's reflected in the budget.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Other final discussion here on warrant Article 1 as amended?
Mr. Moderator, if we could go back to the slide that has the 4 big-ticket items, I'd be obliged. Yes, this one. So we had some interesting conversation here about this slide, but I just want to make sure that we're all fully in the same boat. So there is certainly a legal obligation to provide special education services to special ed children. Special ed programs lack a certain amount of transparency to the general public to protect the privacy of students that are engaged in the special ed system. And that is the way it should be, right? We all have a right to privacy. So, but because it lacks that transparency, when we say there's nothing that we can do about the $1 million in special education, that is based on an assumption that we have shopped long and hard
to find the absolute lowest possible cost mechanism to deliver the goods and services to those students. So that's an assumption, and that's an assumption that people can say, oh, yes, that is what we do, for sure. But again, you have to take that on faith. So to say there's nothing that can be done about the $1 million, I don't think I would necessarily agree with that. To say it a different way, perhaps you could do it for less. You could certainly do it for more, right? There would be other ways to deliver those services that would cost more money, one way or the other. The $800,000 for high school tuition, it's a funny discussion. It's a funny discussion because we're always supposed to be supporting public education in Deerfield, especially when it comes to DCS. But then when I listen to the discussions and the debate around what it costs to provide a high school education to Deerfield students, it sounds to me, so opinion, it sounds to me like a lot of people just want to find the lowest possible cost bidder and send all our students there. And I don't like that. I think we should always be striving to provide the most appropriate education to the most children in the community that we possibly can. And as for Concord, yeah, they have building development going on in Concord. There's no doubt about that. Their student population has been in decline for decades, and that's why 10 years ago they gave us such a great deal on the last Concord contract, because they were afraid of losing the funding units that our students represent to Concord. They didn't want to lose that source of revenue. And while they may refill some seats, that may happen, I don't believe that's going to squeeze out the small number of Deerfield students. And if it does, the silver lining is that the vast majority of school districts in New Hampshire have had student enrollment declines for at least the last 10, if not 20 years. The state of New Hampshire public education system is not what it was 20 years ago when seats were scarce. Most districts have a plethora of empty seats. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. Any final comments on warrant Article 1, please? As amended. Yes. Hi.
Andrea Hoteling. One last pitch, just to, because people are talking about, well, how can the default budget be higher? I've already discussed that I believe the default budget is being applied incorrectly based on the transportation contract. There are other multi-year contracts that have been signed since we passed an operating budget. The 3 top administrators in the school have all gotten new contracts since then. In addition, we have a number of expenses such as electric, oil, grounds maintenance, co-curricular officials, custodial salaries, computer network. In 2019 and 20, those total things were $349,399. And the default budget, it says, it should contain appropriations that were in the operating budget as authorized in the previous year. In other words, what we have voted for increased only by things mandated by law or contract that has been approved. In the current default budget, they are including $458,944 in those same categories. That is more than $110,000 higher than the regular budget. And I know that the preparation of default budget is left to the governing body, which is the school board. However, I think it is very disrespectful to the citizens of Deerfield to make interpretations of default budget that do not seem to comport with the law. Thank you.
Thank you. Any final comments?
Mr. Moderator, Phil Billett on Nottingham Road, move the question.
Okay. Is there a second? Did you want to have one final comment, sir? Okay. If okay, we'll just have that one final comment, and then we'll... Okay, we'll take a vote. All those in favor of moving
Mr.
the question?
Moderator, a point of order. I was
point of order.
standing before the motion to move the question
Okay.
was presented.
As our
I am
rules have
therefore
indicated,
in line-
we'll allow that. We'll allow it. Please speak, and we'll go ahead and vote right after that.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Mr. Moderator. My comment to the body and the board is, with all of these numbers that are presented, I do not see one nickel of it that is returned from the state to the community. Special ed transportation. The state sends thousands, tens of thousands of dollars to Deerfield for special ed transportation, and a whole myriad of other categories. Blank. Nothing there. You go to the school board for a dialogue, blank. Nothing there. So I would like to see in the future that the amount of funds that come back to Deerfield be presented in the budget so that we can have a discussion that reflects proper numbers. We can't just leave this money out of the budget in thin air and not present how many thousands of dollars came back to Deerfield for a variety of things, building aid, what have you, but special ed specifically. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Moderator, and thank you.
Appreciate
for
it.
being-
You're welcome. Okay, so we're going to go ahead. We have a motion to move the question, and it's seconded. All those in favor of moving the question, raise your card. All those opposed, questions moved. We're going to go ahead and place this warrant article number 1 as amended on the budget, or on the ballot, excuse me, with our clerk. So thank you. We're going to move on to warrant article number 2. Okay,
Mr. Moderator?
Yes, please.
Someone's approaching.
Mr. Moderator,
Yes, please.
Robert Prieto, 112 South Road. I make a motion to restrict to reconsider.
Is there a second?
Second.
And that's on our warrant article 1, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. There's a motion for restricting reconsideration on warrant article number 1. There's a second. Open for discussion. Any discussion? All those in favor of restricting reconsideration, please signify by raising your card. And this prevents any changes to that warrant article prior to voting. All those signify by saying aye, or raise your card. Any opposed? Okay, it passes. So the budget can no longer be changed at this point. Moving on to warrant article number 2, and it reads, shall the Deerfield School District vote to approve the cost items set forth in the collective bargaining agreement reached between the Deerfield School Board and the Deerfield Para Educators Association for the 2024-25, 25-26, 26-27, and 27-28 fiscal years, which calls for the following estimated increases in salaries and benefits at the current staffing level in the fiscal year, and their estimated amounts in 24-25 is $94,853. 25 and 26 is $51,610. 26 and 27 is $62,178. And 27-28 is $50,544. And further raise and appropriate the sum of $94,853 for the 24-25 fiscal year, such sum representing the additional costs attributed to the increase in salaries and benefits required by the new agreement over those that would be paid at current staffing levels. Majority vote required. School Board recommends approval 400. Budget Committee does not recommend approval 551. If there's a tie, it's automatically not recommended, in case you're wondering. And then if passed, the tax impact will be 12 cents per thousand. And then we will introduce our Nathan Oxnard to present this, please.
Thank you. So as a board, how we reached this proposed agreement with the paraeducators, we obviously are here as elected officials to make these decisions in terms of how we can best serve our students and educate our students in our community, and that's where we start from. Obviously, we're also taxpayers, and so in line with the previous conversation that we just had about the budget, we also, of course, consider budget impacts. And so where we landed when we attempt to balance these two factors is on this proposed contract. The significant changes really boil down to the salary schedule and payment or changes to benefits and to that sort of piece of the contract, less in terms of some of the other extraneous language that was cleaned up. But really, I think the thing to think about is the salary schedule. When we look at educating our students, when we look at what has happened over the last couple of years from fallout, if you will, COVID happened, the school shut down. It came up at candidates night the other night whether that was a good idea, and I think we all agree that our students, there are some holes in our students' learning from that, and so whether even in schools that stayed open, there was cost, there was trauma, there's all kinds of things that students are coming back to school with that didn't exist previous to COVID. And so when we look at how we can best educate students, we are still in our school, in the state, in the country, in the 21st century, looking at differentiating education, meeting students where they are. You meet, as a teacher, you meet a student in the fall. Ideally, you try to move them forward from where they are, and then in the spring, we look at that progress, right? And so when you are a teacher and you're trying to differentiate, we recognize as a board that to be able to provide the best supports as possible, a highly qualified paraeducator team in our school is what we're looking for. And so in line with the previous conversation about challenges finding bus drivers, there have been also similar conversations in our town, in our state, in our country about finding paraeducators, about finding teachers. This is going to become a larger and larger issue that we're all wrestling with. And so part of what we do as we approach this question is to think, how can we get the best people in here to help our students and to help our teachers differentiate, make education as meaningful and as effective as possible. And so when we looked at neighboring towns, this is where this might be useful. You got that up there. Thank you very much. It's also in the packet either way. But when you look at the salary schedules at the state DOE website, it can be a little bit challenging to sift through all of the numbers. And so what I tried to do is I tried to give you a sense of where our current paraeducators are at the close of their current contract. First column, our current Deerfield is at the bottom row, which is currently this year in the first column. And then you'll see that as we go forward the next couple of years, other towns with their contracts in place certainly take some leaps. And so if you put yourself in the head of, let's say, a person looking for a qualified paraeducator looking for a job, let's say you live in some place like Allenstown or Pembroke or wherever, you're going to be looking, in some radius about where do you want to drive. And so if you're in, let's say, Allenstown or Pembroke, what's a 20-minute drive from there? Sure, Deerfield is, but there's also other places. Bo's right across the river. And so we are competing with other towns. And we need to think about, if we're going to do the best by our students, we hopefully will entice people to apply for our jobs. And that's part of our job here. This morning, our conversation has talked about the board looking for the lowest bidder, right? That's not our approach here. We are trying to get effective education in this building, and that's where we land with this contract. You'll see that the way the contract moves, or the proposed contract in Deerfield over the next couple of years, is that the starting point maybe gets a little bit higher than some of the neighboring towns, but the uppermost limit is not nearly as high as some of the neighboring towns as well. And so trying to find that balance, getting new people in is our goal, and then if we can get people to apply for the job right out of college or wherever, then hopefully we can keep them with the great school that we offer here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so this is warrant article number 2 regarding the collective bargaining agreement. It's now open for discussion and amendments, please. Ms. Katie?
One thing I would like to say is,
Do you mind just pointing that microphone down so we can hear you? There you go. Perfect. Thank you.
in years past, you gave us a sheet or booklet with the number of students in each grade and the teachers and the number of aides. So you had the teacher's salary, you had the aides. This doesn't do it. This, to me, I want to know what I'm paying people for. But the question I want to know now is we have, Zach told me the other day, 495 students, say 500. How many aides do we have for those 500 students?
Okay, you want to answer, please?
So our current roster, we have between certified staff at full-time equivalents is 58.75. For non-certified, we have 42.13.
Just a minute.
And we prepare that knowing you're going to ask that question every year, Harriet.
I'm glad you know. There are people in town that want to know.
you say that
I'm
again,
sorry, I
Jack?
got
Some
the
folks didn't hear.
58. What was the second?
The clerk would like, it's 58.75 for certified and 42.13 for non-certified, giving us a total full-time equivalent of 100.88. I don't know what happened to the 12th of a person, or the...
On a diet.
And the 58.76,
75.
I'm sorry,
Yep, go ahead.
are how many teachers of that and how many aides of that?
So the full-time equivalents for certified staff would be the 58.75. That would be the teachers, correct, Patty?
Yes.
Yeah.
Support staff.
Yeah.
Reading specialists.
And a couple of additional specialists, but those are the full-time certified teachers.
Okay. Boy, that's changed. The non-certified are what?
Paras.
Paraprofessionals. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, and kitchen staff, custodial staff, it would be the rest of the building staff.
Okay, so, yes, please.
I'm not, you didn't exactly, the previous speaker did not exactly ask this question, but I might just try to throw it in here as well.
More information is helpful, sure.
Yeah, so certainly with the school choice vote, with the 800,000 we saw just show up in the budget, in our last couple meetings, the board has been considering the idea. It's been brought up by various speakers at our board meetings, but we've had student numbers have been dropping a little bit over the past couple of years with COVID. They haven't quite come up to, they're sort of closer to where they were before COVID, but we do have fewer students in the building at this time. So the idea of, is it possible to cut back on a teacher, has come up, and we haven't made any decisions about that, but in order to do that, which would put would make an effect, would make an impact that you would see on the operating budget. In order to do that, I think having a competent, well-qualified paraeducator team in place would really give us more flexibility to be able to accomplish differentiation, et cetera, with perhaps one less teacher in the building. So again, I think that's just another piece to consider. How do we have the most flexibility to make those kinds of cost-saving decisions that we can?
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, I'm Julie Mosgrober. I live at 137 Hertford Brook. I just want to piggyback a little bit off of what Mr. Oxnard said. Paraprofessionals, they play a critical role in supporting our students and helping them succeed. And too often they are undervalued, they're underpaid. I don't know if you can see the graphic, but the starting salary for a para this year at DCS is $13.14. When paraprofessionals are paid a fair wage, they're more likely to stay in their positions. That reduces turnover. It helps to create a more stable, effective educational setting for all of our students. This year, we lost 2 experienced, effective, beloved paras to higher paying districts. Additionally, several qualified, enthusiastic candidates applied, but they declined those positions because they simply could not afford to take a job at Deerfield Community School. Higher pay will attract talented and qualified individuals, and it will help us retain the ones that we have, further improving the quality of education for all of our students. These essential workers deserve to be compensated for the work that they do. They help students access curriculum, they provide learning opportunities, and they step into various roles at a moment's notice. I would urge all of you to join me in supporting an increase in pay for our paraprofessionals, and in doing so, we show a commitment to our students and our community and our school.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, next speaker, please, on warrant Article 2, please.
Kimberly Black, Meeting House Hill. I was just wondering, based on this for, obviously, salary, wages, if we also compared benefits packages, like, are these similar benefits? Do they get retirement, health care, PTO, that kind of stuff?
Can anyone answer that?
The current proposed contract keeps the benefits largely similar to the previous CBA. Are you asking in comparison to other towns, or are you asking in comparison to what they have now?
Well, I guess I'm asking, when we're looking, you posted the comparison of wages, so obviously part of determining whether or not you're going to get a job is also the benefits package, you know. So just, like, for instance, you know, Bo has obviously a fairly high salary. If they had a lower benefits package kind of thing, that would level
Sure.
out the playing field. So just wondering if we're really comparing apples to apples or just kind of an idea.
Maybe it's a different type of apple, but across towns, you will find that para-CBAs, there are health plans across all school districts. There are different types of different levels of health plans, that kind of a thing. Other benefits may include reimbursement for training and for certification and for fingerprinting, those sorts of things. And so I think it's largely comparable. There's not a lot of significant differences from district to district in terms of those benefits.
One more question, if I may.
Please.
Is the current para-contract, proposed para-contract posted on the site?
It's on the SAU website,
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or amendments regarding warrant article number 2?
I just want to follow up, Leah McHugh, Harvey Road. I just want to follow up to the previous speaker's question. When comparing benefits to other towns, at a step 5, we are giving 80% family, 90% single for health. In comparison to places such as Epsom, Northwood, Candia, you have to wait till you're a step 10, perhaps a step 8 when it comes to Northwood. But so we do have a little bit of a competitive edge when it does come to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any other final comments? Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Kevin Farrell, McCarran Road. Mr. Moderator, is the 12 cent per thousand tax impact based solely on the first year $94,853 estimated cost of the contract?
Yes.
Just the 1 year, yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much. It's interesting because we heard testimony earlier today that the $800,000 for expanded school choice might cost as much as $5 a thousand. In fact, the school board member from South Road seemed to agree with that assessment. This is essentially an eighth of that, and 8 times 12, I believe, is 96 cents. So really, it would be more accurate to say that the school choice tuition increase really is going to cost $1 a thousand. That's not. I just wanted to make sure we're clearing up what things actually cost as far as tax impact. But my question my statement to this is that it was a split decision on the NBC whether or not to recommend this contract. It was 5-5. I was one of the 5 nays. And of the 5 that are not recommending passage of this, to the best of my knowledge, based on what I heard in open debate, and you can look back at budget committee meetings to hear that, Nobody suggested that our paras don't deserve a raise, right? Nobody is suggesting that. My opinion, and I believe the other 5 would probably go along with this, is that it was our opinion that this salary increase was too generous at this time in Deerfield. And so really what we are publicly advocating for is to not recommend this and have the school board go back and renegotiate in good faith with the paras. Is it a union? Yeah. So to negotiate in good faith with the paras union to find something a little more reasonable for the taxpayer while also benefiting the paras. So I don't believe any of the 5 are saying we don't think they deserve a raise. We just believe this contract is a little too generous. And it's my recollection, you can go back and watch the NBC meetings, there are significant differences in the benefits packages, and Deerfield is very competitive in what it offers for benefits compared to most, if not all, of those school districts. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. Okay. Any other comments? Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I, too, also think that the 5-5 was very interesting on the Budget Committee's website. When I was on the school board, I was on the negotiating team. What we finally did was to take a block of money and say to the union, here's the money you have to spend. You can divide that any way you want. Vacation, pay raises, health insurance, take your pick. here's a block of money, we'll say $1 million, just to pick a number out of my head. You have $1 million to divide any way you want for your union members. We came to conclusions rather quickly. They were fair because the block of money that we put on the table to be distributed was based on budgetary factors more than anything else. This is what Deerfield can afford, $1 million. How you split it up is fine with us. We agree. We got to the bottom of negotiations real quick, bloodless. Everybody was happy. So I don't know if that's your approach or not, but I'm offering it as a suggestion. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. Okay, next speaker, please, on Warrant Article 2, the collective bargaining agreement.
Jeannie Menard, Mountain Road.
Good morning.
I'd like to, I'm in support of this amendment and warrant article. And having been a teacher at Pembroke Academy and president of the Teachers Association there, having sat at the negotiation table, it's a privilege what you do in terms of negotiating, and negotiating is just that. So strategies that might have worked in our times are different, and you do the best job you can. So there's no one prescribed method to negotiate these contracts, and this is an unbelievable reflection of probably good effort on both sides, good faith effort on both sides to come to an agreement. It's not easy. So I would suggest that we pass this warrant article for the benefit of the paralegals, but also paraprofessionals, but the community.
Thank you. Okay, next speaker, please, on Warrant Article 2.
Bonnie Bobian, Mount Delight Road. I also am on the Budget Committee this year, and I was one that voted for this. And I also was on the negotiating team with Mr. Gorman, when we were both on the school board together. And it was a privilege to negotiate with the parents. I'm definitely in support of this contract. They are making, right now, less per hour than someone that can get a job at Dunkin' Donuts and any other fast food restaurant. So I think we need to pay them a living wage. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other final comments on Warrant Article 2, collective bargaining? Yes, one more. Mm-hmm. Good morning.
Good morning. Suzanne Steele, Harvey Road. I just want to say, as prior speaker just said, thank you for your efforts. I know it takes a lot of hours to create what you did. I speak as a community member. I've lived here for over 30 years. We do not have children, only cats. So my mother was a special ed teacher. And I lived with a single parent who hardly had enough money to put food on the table. And I can totally understand that we are trying to vie for people who are dedicated and want the best for our students, and our students are our future. So in order to get the people that we want to be able to support our children now and in the future, I think that we need to consider this and pass this warrant article. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other speaker? Yeah, Herman.
Hi, Herman Pretorius, Bloomfield Road. Just to maybe add a different viewpoint to this, not only is this not right in terms of what we're paying our paraprofessionals, because I'm in violent agreement that they're grossly underpaid for the work that they do and the value that they add.
Can you put the microphone up a little bit because we can't hear you?
Sorry.
That's all right.
But to get from the way that I interpret this chart from 13% to the, or $13 to $17.93, is that the right way of looking at this? This year it's $13. Next year it's $17.93. Okay. I assume that just looking at economic data, that $13 has been relatively constant for the last few years. So if we just take all the economic stuff into account, inflation, where we are today, standard pay raises, just to kind of catch them up with the value of goods and the standard of living, I don't even think $17.93 in today's dollars is equivalent to $13 an hour 5 years ago or 6 years ago. So I appreciate what we're trying to do here in terms of making things right. From my personal point of view, I still don't even believe it's enough, right? So I appreciate what you're trying to do here. I think this is absolutely the right thing to do, and I hope that people are in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other speakers on warrant article number 2?
I just have a point of order. I don't want to speak either way.
You got to just speak up to the microphone and introduce yourself.
It's Will Hubner, 1 Sunrise Terrace Lane, Deerfield. And just as a point of order, as I understand it, if the Municipal Budget Committee votes 5-5-0 as shown here, it shouldn't say that the Budget Committee recommends approval. It should say that.
It doesn't.
The new packet, we did catch that. That was
There was an updated,
Scrivener's
yep.
error.
All right, so it was a good point of order.
Yeah, very good catch, and they caught
Thank
it.
you.
Good, good, thank you. Okay, next speaker, please, on warrant article 2.
Morning, Josh Cresswell, Range Road.
Morning.
When we were in the budget hearings, there was some discussion about concessions that were made to this particular line item that aren't really clarified, just seeing the numbers on the chart. Madam Chairwoman, would you mind explaining some of the concessions that were made to equal out some of the benefits and salary costs that were proposed that you could
Yeah,
explain
I
to us?
think Nate probably could even speak to that more than I can. I wasn't involved in the negotiations, but my understanding is that we have reconfigured the longevity bonuses to make higher wages especially for starting paras. So longevity at some point gets frozen so that there is more money available to increase the hourly rate.
Right. So in previous contracts, partly, as one of the previous speakers noted, the 13-14 is low, and so in order to make that appealing and competitive to incoming applicants, previous versions of this contract had a longevity clause that basically was a percent paid on top of their wage, and so it tied to how long they'd been at the school, and so there was a concession on the side of the para educators about reducing that, and with the goal of elevating the starting level to bring in more new people rather than focusing on keeping the people who have been here for 20 years, which is what kind of the previous language in that contract had said. So we kind of moved that around a little bit. Yep.
Okay, any further? Yes, good morning.
Just a point of clarification, your top step, is that the same across the board? Are we looking at top step as step 5?
No, that's part of the complexity of sifting through all these numbers. So
I
in
figured.
some districts, there are 5 steps. In some districts, there are 8 steps. But that step is every year of
Yep.
the contract, how do you move forward? And
Okay.
so, does that answer your question?
Yeah, so for us, our top step is going to be step 5.
I think actually we cut out a step. Is that right in this? It was 7. It was
Okay.
7. We cut it down to 5 steps.
Okay, thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you. Any final comments on 2? Yep. Yes, good morning.
Andrea Hoteling. I have a motion, actually, to amend this, some wording, not wording. I have no intention of changing anything in the contract. I just want to change the statement that says fiscal year 2024-25 estimated increase should be, and I want to amend it to $141,587, which is a $46,734 increase over the more than what is down there as $94,853. In other words, I would change $94,853 to $141,587.
Okay, it's probably moving second. Is that allowed legally? No. It's already been a negotiated contract. It's signed. You cannot change it.
Okay, so then if I explain to people all that I'm trying to do, the salaries of the people, this again is from NBC, the salaries of these contractual people were $523,000, again rounded. Next year, they're going to be 653. This is just the salary schedule and the steps going up. In addition, in the current year, the people that get longevity right now, the total is approximately 43,000. So the total compensation this year is 565,000. Then fringes are added in and whatever. But next year, there is no longevity added in. So the subtraction to get to what the increase is, this year it has salaries plus longevity. Longevity is supposed to be frozen, which means you have to have salary plus longevity. The only thing I am trying to do is to allow these paras to actually have their frozen longevity. I'm not trying to change the contract. I'm just simply trying to say this 94,853 does not keep the 43,000 of longevity for those people in the comparison, again, 1 year to the next. It doesn't in any way change the contract. It just is an incorrect presentation. Once again, these are schedules prepared, given to the MPC, and I can clearly see the 43,000 is not there.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Further discussion.
So I agree that contractual language cannot be changed. My understanding is the maker of the motion is not trying to change the contract. The maker of the motion, to the best of my knowledge, is in fact not trying to change the wording of the question, although I'm not sure that that's defined by law. But if it is, it doesn't matter. She's not trying to change the form of the question. She is simply trying to update the estimated increase for the 2024-2025 year. And if there's some uncertainty as to who's correct, and at this point I have uncertainty, I might request that we again take a recess and allow the motion maker to have a discussion with the school district to see if we can come to some agreement.
Andrea, do you have that written up for me, please?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. Do you have a comment on that? Did you want to respond? Did somebody want to respond to that?
That's not something that can be changed by a motion. It's still, that figure is something that is not subject to change by the governing body, the legislative body.
Because this is the contractual information that it's utilized and that can't change? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and that's,
Okay.
that figure, right, is not calculated by you, correct?
I did not calculate.
So that's something that we cannot change here.
Who prepares these schedules then that you gave us at the NBC?
I believe the negotiating committee, and then someone in our office reviews it.
Okay.
Point of order.
Both sides, both parties review it.
Point of order, Mr. Moderator.
Yes, please.
You've not given
Oh, just a moment.
longevity that's frozen. It's frozen, so you could either leave it out entirely.
Yeah, we're going to just
Let's
take a
have this
couple-minute
conversation
recess here,
as
just so
a
they can
body.
discuss this. So go ahead and use the restrooms, and we'll take just a quick moment for recess. Folks want to grab a seat?
Sure, thank you. Then we can move on,
Okay, folks want to find their seats. We'll go ahead and get restarted here.
You guys are making a lot of sense. I don't know why
You're talking to the wrong people. These are the people to talk to.
She talked about it, John. Kendra and I have talked about it. Kendra and I have actually talked about doing that when you have more of a conversation. The problem is that you want to also, you don't want your meeting going until 11, 12 o'clock at night if somebody keeps going back and forth. But I do agree. I feel like we can clear up a lot of things if we just say something back to people a lot of times. So, I mean, it's certainly something we're talking about. We're waiting now until the board members, and we're going to bring it up again.
I want to be brutally blunt. I testified before hundreds
Okay, we're going to get restarted here. If folks can find their seats, we'll go ahead and get restarted, if we could. Are we missing somebody, or we good? Okay, all right, very good. Okay, so thank you very much for that. I hope everyone appreciated a quick recess here. So we're able to get some clarification. We'll have our school district attorney just explain this a little bit for us.
So can you hear me? Sorry. So the reason that it's a legal amendment would be because that number is something that is discussed by both parties and that they agreed to that number. And that's the number that the parties, when they negotiated, anticipated going on the warrant. So because that was agreed to by both parties, it's part of the contract and cannot be amended.
Okay, thank you. All right, so this warrant article here, we cannot amend with that further information. Yep, please.
Claudia Libas, Maple Avenue. I'd like to call the question.
Okay. Is there a second? Okay, we're moving to question. So all those or any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay. So warrant article number 2 will go on the ballot as written. And we'll move on to warrant article number 3. Number 3 reads, shall the Deerfield School District, if article number 2 is defeated, authorize the governing body to call one special meeting at its option to address article number 2 cost items only? So warrant article number 3, Nate, if you'd like to discuss.
Yeah. In the few years that I've been on the board and done some of the negotiations, it has never come to this. They have passed, but if it does not pass, then this number 3 article would then allow the board to call a special meeting to try to figure out what to do next. That's about it.
Okay, so warrant article 3 is open for discussion. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So I got to admit, this one always perplexes me because I don't understand what the special meeting is. So is the special meeting another deliberative session followed by another vote by ballot? Is that what? Can somebody tell me what the definition of the special meeting is?
Yes, so it's a special meeting of the legislative body to work towards a new collective bargaining agreement. So like if they would go back, negotiate, come back to the table, and there would be a special meeting that they would call of the legislative body to discuss that and try to approve that agreement.
So because we're SB, thank you, Mr. Moderator, if I may. So because we're SB2, would that be another deliberative session followed by another balloting? Is that what the special meeting is?
I'm on my computer getting the exact
No rush.
procedure right now. Just give me a second.
Yeah, no rush. Thank you.
Mr. Moderator?
Yes.
Is it possible, if it's going to be a few minutes, for us to continue with the meeting while Ms. Tamposi does the research and we can follow up?
Or do you have a follow-up question to that?
No,
okay.
I'm not opposed
do you mind
to...
we just give her a few minutes and then we'll let you know?
Yeah, certainly.
Okay,
Thank you,
thanks.
Mr. Moderator.
Is there any
Thank you, Mr.
other...
Moderator.
Thank you. Is there any other discussions on warrant article number 3 for the special meeting request? Okay. If okay, we'll go ahead and update Kevin on that, and then we'll place the warrant article number 3 on the ballot with our school district clerk. Warrant article number 4. Shall the Deerfield School District vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $150,000 to be placed in the Special Education Trust Fund, this sum to come from the June 30th, 2024 unassigned fund balance available for transfer on July 1st, 2024. Majority vote required, no amount to be raised from taxation. The school board unanimously recommends, as the budget committee as well. So number 4 is going to be presented by Ms. Danielle Palmer.
Yep, so as mentioned earlier, our special education trust fund, we are anticipating it's going to be depleted, so we're just looking to get some more funds into that account at the end of the year.
Thank you. Article 4 is open for discussions. Yes, please.
Joanna Waring, South Road. Mine is just more of a question on the wording. This is being raised from the unassigned fund balance, so normally you would have raise and appropriate the sum of up to $150,000 as opposed to a fixed number. And the same thing's going to come with number 5. That would be a fixed number. But I guess I'd make a motion that we change the wording from and appropriate the sum of $150,000 to the sum of up to $150,000.
Second.
Okay, properly moved and seconded and open for discussion. Who seconded it, just so I, Zach? Okay, Zach Langlois. Okay, so we're open for discussion on the wording change, to change where it says appropriate the sum of and adding the words up to in that for $150,000. Is there any discussion on that? Seeing none, if you want to grab your voting cards. All those in favor of this amendment to adding the words up to, please raise your card. Thank you. Any opposed? Okay, passes. So we have an amended warrant article number 4. Okay. Any other discussion on warrant article number 4? Okay, as amended. All right, so we'll go ahead and instruct our school district clerk to place warrant article number 4 as amended on our ballot. Thank you. Warrant article number 5, please. Shall the Deerfield School District vote to raise and appropriate the sum of up to $150,000 to be added to the Special Education Trust Fund as previously established? The school board recommends approval 4-0-0. The budget committee does not recommend approval 5-5-0. Again, the tie means it's a decline for approval. So number 5, Danielle Palmer.
Yep. Again, same reason. We're anticipating the current trust fund to be depleted. We are trying to raise money to boost that back up. And we did not want all that money to come from one source. We were trying to get it from 2 different sources. Yes, that's it.
Okay, so Joanna.
Yep, Joanna Warren, South Road. This is sort of the opposite of the previous one. It should be and appropriate the sum of $150,000, not up to, since it's coming from taxes.
Second.
Okay, properly moved and seconded, seconded by Zach Langlois there. So can I have your amendment you're finishing writing?
Some discussion on.
Oh, let's open for discussion. Any discussion on that word change? I didn't think they have a lot to say, Joanna. Oh, okay. Perfect. Okay, great. All right. Okay, so we have a motion here for adjusting the verbiage on warrant article number 5, where it says the appropriate the sum of up to just change it to the appropriate the sum of $150,000. Does that make sense? Okay, so all those in favor of this verbiage change, please signify by raising your card. Thank you. Any opposed? Okay, so that passes. So we have an amended warrant article number 5, unanimous. Any other discussions on the amended warrant article number 5? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Don Gorman again, Mountain Road. If the funds are depleted, exclude this article for the moment, if the funds are depleted for whatever reason, is there not state and/or federal resources that could be tapped into that would provide for whatever the deficiency was in the special ed? I'd like to get an answer from anybody on that question.
So there is some funding from the state and federal government for special education. Unfortunately, it doesn't cover the vast majority of our expenses. So no, if we depleted our trust fund, I don't think there's some pool of money that we could tap into from the government. Our operating budget does factor in the revenues for those things during the creation of our operating budget. But could they give us more special ed funding? Sure. But we are working with what we currently have.
Okay, but that would come under the heading of an emergency.
I'm not aware of an emergency fund that we could tap into for special ed costs.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any other comments on our warrant Article 5 as amended? Yes, hi. Please. Good morning.
Good morning. Sorry, I don't have the report that I'm looking for, and I don't expect it to be here at this meeting. The DOE 20...
Could you just say your name and...
Sorry, Marjorie Whitmore.
Sure.
The DOE 25. Do we know how much is in the 2.5 unassigned fund balance retention?
Do you know how much was in it?
Yeah.
Like the net assessed value?
No,
How much we retained?
So there's a 2.5% unassigned retained fund balance?
Yeah, they do not, the district doesn't retain I don't think they retain the full amount of that 2.5.
Yep, so that's why I'm asking, do we know how much is actually retained? Because I'm just thinking that money could possibly be used for that.
So I don't have the dollar amount on me, but it was a comment I was going to make, is we did retain funds last year. We had a small surplus that we were able to tap for the retention. The number that's in my head is about 200K.
Yeah.
But if they're verifying that. But it was about 200K, and those funds could be used to offset the overage in the special education lines before necessarily having to go into the trust fund.
Correct.
That's correct.
Yes. Yep, I just wanted to make sure we had some.
Great question. Thank you. Okay, any other follow-up to warrant Article number 5 as amended? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and place warrant Article number 5 as amended on the ballot. And Mr. Verville, quick update for your warrant Article number 3 question. You would have a follow-up deliberative session and election for that. You're welcome.
And it's a shortened process. It's in the RSA 4013, but you can look, it's towards the end. But yes, so there are 2 sessions that comport with 4013, and it's a shortened time frame.
Thank you so much.
Okay, very good. We're on to warrant Article number 6, and that reads, shall the Deerfield School District approve tuition agreements between the Deerfield School District and the Concord and Pembroke School Districts, as well Co-Brown Northwood Academy, as negotiated by the school board, each of which provides for an initial term beginning on July 1st, 2024, and ending on June 30th, 2027, with the option for the term to be extended for 2 years at Co-Brown Northwood Academy for one additional one-year periods at Pembroke Academy and Concord High School, and that the tuition be paid to each school will be determined by the operating budget of the school and student attendance, and authorize the school board to submit the agreements to the State Board of Education for approval pursuant to RSA 194:22, and take such other and further acts as are necessary to give effect to this warrant article, including the adoption of minor amendments to the agreements from time to time during those terms of those agreements, without further action by the school district meeting. So we'll have Kendra Cohen, our school board chair, introduce this warrant article, please.
Mr.
Yes, please.
Andy Road. Were we supposed to close out number 3 with a quick vote?
Nope, unless there's an amendment to
Because
it.
we had got away from it and then we went ways per question.
No, if there's no amendment to it, it automatically goes on the ballot.
And
Yep, but thank you.
Mr. Moderator, if I can real quick, because I did have that information for the retainage from last year. It took me a second to find. It looks like it was $265,953.
Okay. All right, and so.
This is just a point of order. I
Yep.
just wanted to offer if anybody didn't have this, because this is going to help you in the discussion. Could I give
Yes.
them out if anybody does not have the red line?
So I'm going to start this by making a motion to amend. And we've made red line copies of what I intend to amend. So if you look at this handout, okay, if you look at the handout, the first paragraph is the original wording. The second paragraph is the red line version. And then the third paragraph is what it would read if the amendment was approved.
This is not part of the contract.
Yeah, so let's give everyone a quick moment.
This is not part of the contract.
Yep.
So then why can't we amend?
Okay, if you want to read through the last version there, so what you're proposing as an amendment?
Yes, my proposed amendment would be to change the wording to, shall the Deerfield School District authorize the board to submit the approved tuition agreements between the Deerfield School District and the Concord and Pembroke school districts, as well as Co-Brown Northwood Academy, as negotiated by the school board, each of which provides for an initial term beginning July 1st, 2024, and ending June 3rd, 2027, with the option for the term to be extended for 2 years at Co-Brown Northwood Academy and for 1 additional year periods at Pembroke Academy and Concord High School, with tuition to be paid to each school as determined by the operating budget of each school and student attendance, to the State Board of Education for approval pursuant to RSA 194:22, and take such other and further actions as are necessary to give effect to this warrant article, including the adoption of minor amendments to the agreements from time to time during the terms of those agreements without further action by the school district meeting.
Okay, so this is the motion made. Is there a second on this amendment?
Second.
Second, and can you state your name?
Ellen O'Donnell.
Okay, Ellen O'Donnell, second. Okay, it's been properly moved in second. It's now open for discussion if you would like to speak to this behalf.
Yes, thank you so much. So I apologize for the confusion on this article. It was a little bit sloppy, and I apologize for that. I think this amendment clarifies what the board is trying to do here. We have signed 3 agreements with 3 schools. As of right now, they are just tuition agreements. So a previous speaker brought up a concern about what if Concord, or what if any of the schools decides during the course of our agreements, we don't have room for your kids anymore, or we don't, want a certain population of kids, or we don't want X, Y, or Z. Submitting the agreements to the Department of Education makes all of those schools maintained by the district. That gives us certain power to say, you can't deny our students because they are your students as well. So just to make sure that our students get to go to which school they choose, I think it's very important to have these approved by the Department of Education. Otherwise, we have tuition agreements, and I think this town has historically seen issues that have come up when there are tuition agreements that don't have any power behind them. This gives us more power to make sure our students can go to the school that they select.
Okay. All right, so this is now open for discussion on the amendment as presented. So any comments from the community?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Yes.
Kevin Verlin, McCarran Road. I guess my only question is this question a required ballot question in order to submit those approved tuition agreements directly to the state? Or is this an intermediary state that the board has chosen to adopt for reasons of its own?
Like we saw last year with the Concord contract, the Department of Education wasn't willing to look at the contracts until the town authorized the school board to send them to the Department of Education. So I don't know.
That's answer enough for me. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know that they wouldn't look at it, but based on past precedent, we're making sure that we have approval before we submit them.
Okay. Other discussion, please? Yes, sir.
Richard Bovair, Church Street. I see that you are extending the term for 2 years at Co-Brown, but 1 year for Pembroke and Concord. Why the difference?
I think that was just part of negotiations. I don't think there was a strategic decision on the negotiators team. That was just what the receiving schools were willing to do without a full negotiation, if that makes sense.
Okay. Other discussions on the amendment, please?
Don Gorman. I'll be short and to the point. Thank you for the amendment. I think it's brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any other comments on the amendment, please? Seeing none, if you can get your voting cards out, please. Okay. All those in favor of the amended wording change that was presented, please signify by raising your voting card up. Thank you. You can put your card down. All those opposed, raise your card up. Okay, that's unanimous. Motion passes. This amendment is in effect for warrant Article 6. Now open for discussion on the amended warrant Article number 6, please. Yes.
Kimberly Black, Meeting House Hill. I actually have another amendment. I would like to make the language even more concise. to say, shall the Deerfield School District submit the approved tuition agreements between the Deerfield School District and Co-Brown Northwood Academy and the Concord School District and the Pembroke School District by the school board to the State Board of Education for approval pursuant to RSA 194:22 to be deemed as high schools maintained by the district for a term beginning July 1, 2024. I personally didn't like the last line. I think it gives the board too much wiggle room outside of RSA 194.
Is there a second to that motion? Second, so probably moving second, and it's open for discussion. Okay, you want to? Okay. So we have a motion on the floor, and with the terminology change there, and again, I'll read that out so you guys can follow along here. Again, it's, shall the Deerfield School District submit the approved tuition agreements between the Deerfield School District and Co-Brown Northwood Academy and the Concord School District and Pembroke School District by the school board to the State Board of Education for approval pursuant to RSA 194:22 to be deemed as high schools maintained by the district for a term beginning July 1st, 2024. Any legal concerns?
Can we see a written version of that? Thank you.
And that's why we write it down. Sorry? Who was this?
Greg Whitmore.
Greg Whitmore, please. Thank you. Okay. We'll just give her a moment here. Is there any other discussion while she's looking at that? Any other discussion on the amendment, please? Yep. And this would be amendment number 2 for warrant article 6. Thank you, Jeannie.
Jeannie Menard. I think it might be helpful if the school board could give us some possible examples of such other further acts that may crop up as being something that you would be helpful to have this in place. Any real life examples? By striking, I want to understand the consequence of striking that last few sentences from
Okay.
the.
It might be a good question for our attorneys doing the research. Wrong number.
Yeah, thanks for the question. This is not going to be a popular answer, but it was included, it was drafted by our counsel who was trying to help us figure out the solution, and that it was recommended to be included by the council. It wasn't something the school board requested, but I could, there could be minor things that come up, like, I don't even know.
What about the payment schedule?
Payment schedule, right, like the current contract lays out that we're going to pay 40% by this date.
And the reports that they give to us.
Right, so the contracts are more complicated than just, this is the tuition. So there's a lot of factors included, so I could foresee something coming up, but I don't have a great example.
And so I think Kendra makes some valid points, but there's certainly, having it vetted by our legal, and unfortunately, the representation we have here isn't the representation we had for the negotiation part of our contracts. But it's important to recognize that when we do these legal articles, we spend some time making sure that legal reviews them and that the way they can be enforced is accurate and adequate. Things like payment due dates, things that may involve notifying the schools of when the students are intending to enroll, are all those things that the school board, as they move forward, may need a little bit of flexibility with, so that they can say, okay, well, this date doesn't work for the students and for everything, so maybe we need to adjust it by a couple days plus or minus. Without that flexibility built into the article, we run the risk of not being able to make simple amendments to, tweak things as we progress. Or they can tweak things as they progress.
Wish I'm going to make sure there's nothing else we missed.
Okay, so council's going to explain her findings on the legal findings on the amendment suggestion, please.
So 2 other consequences of the amendment, in addition to just saying that it's a high school maintained by the district, which that language is probably fine. It does take out the part about the allowing to extend for 1 year and 2 years, which were negotiated as part of the agreement, so that can't be changed. The other thing that it took out was, and to take other and further acts as are necessary to give effect to this warrant article, including adoption of minor amendments to the agreements from time to time during the terms of those agreements, and without further action of school district meeting. That was a provision that was warned as part of the warrant article, and was a specific part of that warrant article, therefore it cannot be changed. So part of that is okay to reword it, but there are other parts of the amendment that aren't permissible.
Okay, all right.
So, sure.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So you say that there were parts that were warned. I'm not sure I understand what that is, what that means. Can you walk me through that, please?
Yes, so when things are posted with the warrant ahead of time, there's a requirement that the warrants be posted ahead of time. The subject matter of the warrant cannot change at the meeting. This takes out part of the subject matter that was warned at the meeting, so.
Which is the extensions?
Which is allowing them to take further action to put that forward and to make slight amendments to the agreements from time to time as necessary. So that is the part that would change the subject matter of the warrant article, which was warned by, when I say warned, with the posted warrant.
I understand. A follow-up, if I may, Mr.
Please.
Moderator. So the subject matter, though, is submitting the contracts to the State of New Hampshire Department of Education for approval or whatever. So can you explain to me how taking out the line granting them permission to do something changes the subject matter, which is to send the contracts to the State of New Hampshire?
Yes, so not only does this warrant allow the approval by the state board, it also gives the power to the school board to make amendments from time to time and to take further action. So both are part of the warrant article as it was posted prior to the meeting. So that is my opinion on.
That's the subject.
I have my answer. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Moderator.
Okay. Further discussion on this amendment?
Inquiry, Mr. Moderator, since the proposition before us, as I understand it right now, is part of the amendment is okay, other parts are not okay because of contract negotiations. Would it be a proper motion to divide the question at this time?
Well, I think not. Go ahead.
So you have to address an amendment as it is, and at this point, that would be, my opinion, is an illegal amendment, and so it wouldn't be actionable. We can make another amendment if she would like to. However, so that's how it would be. So if she wants to amend her amendment, well, you can't amend an amendment, but if she wants to rescind that amendment.
Or we can vote on this one and then if she'd like to produce a new one.
You can vote on it, however, if it passes, it would be an illegal amendment.
An illegal amendment, so.
It really should not be voting on.
So it shouldn't be voted on? Okay, so this is, all right, so Kimberly, did you want to write a new amendment, please? That addresses what she's saying? Is that what you'd like to do?
And I can explain it again if you'd like.
I understand. Thank you very much. It's just that was, per the meetings, watching the school board, the intention of this article was to send it to the DOE. The way the attorneys wrote it, oh my goodness. I think you made the statement to an earlier comment was that you're really trying to attach, two birds with one stone here, which wasn't what I had thought the school board's original intention was for this article. So I would absolutely like to rewrite it.
Okay, thank you.
I don't need a pen. Can I have the article?
The original one? Yep, okay, sure. Okay. So, Greg, did you want to comment? We've got
Greg Whitmore, North Road. I don't know what it's going to turn into now. But from what it was a second ago, I certainly appreciate the more concise nature of the amendment. The average person reading it as posted by the school board, their eyes are going to gloss over. It's just way too lengthy, and it doesn't get to the point. It seems like a large portion of it is describing the contracts, which I don't think are necessary because the contracts are already in place. So why are we describing something that's already been put into place, which just contorts the overall, flow of the article as it's written. But I do think it's absolutely critical that we keep in there school maintained by the district, because we have the school of record terminology that floats around, and that's what people go to, but the actual terminology is school maintained by the district, so that really needs to be in there. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Other discussions on the amended warrant article number 6?
Well, it hasn't, it's yet to be amended at this
I
point.
know, yeah, we're discussing the amended one, right.
Mr. Moderator,
yeah.
would it be appropriate at this time to take maybe a 5 or a 10-second bio break while she writes the amendment?
I think
Okay,
we need to
fine.
take a motion to take recesses. So right now, we have the amended article that is already, that they presented, so we've just got to wait.
We can't amend an amendment to
Right.
an article, so
Correct.
if that
Could I
amendment's
move the
invalid-
question on the originally
The original one.
presented
Yep,
amendment?
absolutely.
Second.
Is there a second? Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor of moving the question, raise your card. Any opposed? Okay. All those in favor of the amended article as presented by the school board, which reads that shall the Deerfield School District... Oh, no, what are you talking about? We can't, no.
So the amended article from Kendra was just moved and seconded, if I'm following along.
Didn't we vote on that?
We already voted on it.
Right, so at this,
So we're done. We're done.
Okay.
No,
Am I going
Kim's-
crazy?
Kim's right, no, we're all set
Unless you
with
want to
this.
vote for
We need to get Kim's amendment. That's what we're waiting for, is Kim's amendment. I'm sorry, guys, that threw me off. So Kim's writing up her amendment. Kim, are you all set? We should have a motion to rescind the first one.
Mr. Moderator, or just a suggestion, because, yeah, we either got to vote this down, or since it's deemed illegal, or whatever the term we want to use, would we say it just didn't happen?
That's
Yes,
what typically
thank you.
happens, yeah.
So really all we're doing is giving Ms. Black a few moments to refine our
Here she
motion.
comes.
Thank you,
Yep,
Mr. Moderator.
Yep, please.
Point of order, we just had the amended motion moved and voted on.
Correct. It hasn't been voted on. Her amendment, she's going to,
We had the question moved, though.
right, but it was determined that it was illegal.
It was illegal to move the question?
No.
I did not.
No.
The amendment.
Her amendment, original amendment.
Right, but after that, there was a motion from the floor to move the question.
To move the question.
And it was voted on.
Okay.
The question was moved.
Yeah.
But there wasn't,
Didn't everybody
So-
raise their hands and vote?
so
Yeah.
Kendra's motion that was,
Rebecca came up, made
Yeah.
a motion
Made the motion,
to move
they
the
did.
question.
They did.
After the amendment that has already been approved.
that is correct.
And there was a vote, there was asked for a second and a vote.
So we have to move on.
Yes.
I'm sorry. We've
And
got to
so, I
move
mean,
on. There was a vote, we have to move the question. The question was moved, and it was voted on, so we have to put it on the ballot as it's stated. I'm sorry, we can't take your amendment now, because there was a motion to move the question, it was seconded and voted on. So, does that make sense?
Mr. Moderator,
Yep.
I would like to move reconsideration of moving the question so that we can entertain Ms. Black's new amendment.
Is there a second? That's open for discussion now, so there's a motion for the reconsideration of,
point of order?
It's my motion, I get to speak first.
yeah, I was just going to finish my saying.
Go ahead, please.
We're just as a motion to reconsider amended Article number 6.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Moderator. So we always talk about, we come here to work these things out, to take the time and wrestle with it as a community, right? And there is no rush to shove this question on the ballot without hearing Ms. Black's good faith amendment. And so if we're really into the open democratic process, then we should approve a motion to reconsider and hear a member of our community's well-intentioned amendment to try to make things better for the voters of Deerfield. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. Other discussions on reopening warrant Article 6?
Just to state, I have no problems reconsidering it. I was just trying to make sure that we were clear on what had just happened.
Yep,
So,
thank you, appreciate it, thank you. Okay, so any other discussion on the reconsideration of opening 6? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your card. Any opposed? Okay, Article 6 as amended is reopened. Ms. Clark. Long way around, but we got there.
This is a great song and dance today. Kimberly Black, Meeting House Hill. May I have a question first? Was it just the adoption of the extras at the end that I needed, or was it also the terms for the extension of the contract?
So it was both. It was both the part where you took out the additional one-year periods, a two-year period, so just the parts where that talked about parts of the contract, and then the other parts were take other such and further acts as are necessary to give effect to this warrant article, and then what followed that.
Okay, so that's what you, I thought you had said the first part was okay to take out, but not desirable. The second part would be changing the subject matter?
No, the part that was okay was that you added the caveat that talking about that it was the high school maintained by the district, because that looks to be like the statutory language. So it was the other two parts that were not legal.
Okay, so I need to put in the wording for the additional terms, for additional one-year period, and 2 years for Co-Brown.
You wouldn't need to change that. You would just change the where you're adding as a school of record, correct?
So my understanding is what you had done is that you moved things around a little bit to brought up the the Department of Education further up in the warrant article, and then you had taken out the last part, and then you had taken out the parts about the term, correct? Right. So the changes that were okay are the last part and the parts that were okay were the high school maintained by the district. The parts that were not okay were the other two, which were take other further action language and the 1 and 2 year language. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Okay.
Thank you.
So are you going to make a motion or no?
At the end of that, it's really pretty much the same as Kendra's. I mean,
okay.
other than some
Thank you.
specific wording, it really doesn't
Okay,
change
appreciate
anything
that.
I
Okay,
was adding.
thank you. Any other amendments or discussions on amended warrant Article 6?
Sorry, did I take your thing? Sorry.
Yes, hi.
Mary Ann Clark, Old Center Road. Did the board give any discussion or thought to putting the costs of these tuitions in here?
Yes. It's hard to map out for the terms of the contracts.
Mhm.
So there are 3-year contract terms. You know, we don't get what the tuition is going to be. Those are not mapped out specifically in the contract because, you know, for instance, Co-Brown sets their tuition every year and sends us and every school a flyer saying this is our tuition for the year. So we couldn't really project out for 3 years what it would be.
Okay, and can you just, I know it's in the budget, but which is the most expensive school, say, the most expensive to least expensive?
I can say that.
Okay.
Here we go.
Oh, okay. So I heard a previous speaker say that we had been shopping around for the lowest cost school, and that's not Concord High School, correct?
Not with the new tuition rate, correct?
Okay. And 10 years ago, I can say it also was not the lowest high school. So in terms of, was the board or are there people looking for the lowest cost? It never was and never, and isn't now. Let me see what the wording was. I forget what the wording was, the lowest cost solution. I can speak to 10 years ago, it being the school that would provide the widest options to the largest number of students, but it still is not. That was never the lowest cost option.
Correct.
Okay.
Not with the current terms.
Okay, other speakers on the amended Article 6?
Will Huebner, 1 Sunrise Terrace Lane. This entire paragraph is one sentence. There's not a single period in this whole thing. It just runs on and on and on.
And it's about a high school. Yeah.
and we're in school after all.
We are.
But here's I guess the point is, I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of the voters that are coming in and reading this thing, you know, and it sounds like, when I try to read through it, I get the impression that it's trying to get us to approve the contracts, but that's not the case. But it sounds like that when you start reading in it. Will the school district approve the tuition agreements between the school district and the Concord School and the Pembroke School and the Northwood Academy? I mean, you got to admit that it sounds like if you're reading it, we're asking you to approve, Mr. Voter, these contracts, but that's not the intention of this article. So I think that it's just worded so poorly that we're going to get a poor vote. You know, it may not be the correct vote because people may not understand what the article's really intending to accomplish. So I think it could be reworded to make it better for the voters.
I do think our amendment addresses that a little bit. It takes out the, shall they approve the tuition agreements to, should we submit them? We are going to be talking about this in the voter's guide, so we have a note that we need to finesse. We're submitting, correct. So, and that has been addressed in the amendment that has already been approved by this body.
Okay. Next speaker, please.
Yes, Mr. Moderator,
Yep,
thank you.
good morning.
Errol Rhodes, Church Street. In the third sentence, the third line, excuse me, by the school board, the phrase that begins with each, does substantially all that follows that, are those included in the agreements that have been signed?
Yes.
So that's really just repetitive of the, it is exactly what's in those contracts, all the way down to the bottom. So there's provision, for instance, for renewals. There's provision for making ministerial changes if need be. It's so on and so forth in those contracts. Is that?
I don't know that the contracts have anything about minor amendments.
Fair enough, but I mean, that's the
The terms are laid out, certainly.
The terms are certainly laid out, so that you have a reference in the contract. And this isn't about the contract, this is about submitting to be maintained by. Is that correct? So I'm just wondering if clarification, that clarification would help thinking about this.
I personally think it's important to include the terms of the agreement in this warrant article, or people will not know what we're submitting to the Department of Education. It might be seen as we're approving this for any amount of time, regardless of how many.
But it does include, in fact, making minor amendments as part of this warrant, as opposed to having that being provided in the contract that you're submitting. So you're asking for a little more than what's, educationally, you're suggesting it's educational, but in fact, it's a little bit more than it being educational.
I'm not sure I understand, but.
Well, you're saying the things in this warrant that are not included in the contracts, right? So you are looking for those approvals. I mean, typically, in a contract, when you ask for, to be able to take all such actions as may be required under that, it's to take effect, it's to make that contract functional.
Right.
This reads a little more widely than that. Okay, so I'm just wondering if that can be addressed.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker on the amended number 6 warrant.
Kimberly Black, Meeting House Hill. I would like to add just a small amendment to this, to what Kendra had earlier, that we had already voted on, just at the lines where it says pursuant to RSA 194:22, I would like to add to be a high school maintained by the district, and then proceed with and take other such further actions as necessary. So I just would like to add the clarity that it's a high school maintained by the district.
Okay, it's properly moved and seconded. It's open for discussion. So
I would say my only comment about that is, would you consider doing high schools maintained, not a high school? Because I think that's confusing if we just have a high school and there's 3.
So you just want to put an S on that, high school. Here.
Yeah, I thought that's what you meant.
That's what you
That's
meant.
entirely what I meant.
That's the goal, is just get what you mean.
Yes,
That's
to
the
be
goal.
high schools maintained, that's absolutely
That's what you meant. Okay, and it's seconded. Who seconded it, please? Kevin, thank you. Thanks. I appreciate it. Didn't need to wake you up. So basically for this one, we're looking to adjust the wording where it says pursuant to RSA 19 or 194:22. So it's the third line up from the bottom, if you're following along, to add the words right after that RSA number, to be high schools maintained by the district and other such action. So We're just adding then to be high schools maintained by the district. So that's essentially that. Okay, open for discussion. Any discussion on this amendment, please?
Bill Biller of Nottingham Road. High school, could you read that again?
Sure.
High school.
It's to be high schools maintained by the district. That's the wording that she wants to add.
Do we maintain Co-Brown? I'm not clear on that.
So that's just the legal language that's in RSA 194:22, and that's what Concord has been considered to us for the past 20 years, a school maintained by our district.
It would be analogous to that school of record term that we use.
Yes.
Okay. Other discussions on this amendment, please?
I really want to call the question, but instead I really have a question. So is the intent that the district couldn't add other schools and change the feeder schools or the schools that we're feeding into? Is that what you're thinking? Or is that even a possibility? Or does that really have nothing to do with this?
Okay. You don't have to answer, but if you'd like to, please.
And after that, I call the question.
No, we can't do that.
My intent is just the same as the school boards, to make sure that these 3 contracts become approved by the DOE and become schools maintained by the districts, which means that those 3 schools, for the term that has been noted, agrees that they will have to take up to all of our students.
Okay.
So that ensures that there's no, not what had happened in previous years where, schools could only take 10 and 15 and 12. So it's the same exact intent as what's
Okay.
been prescribed, just
Great.
clarity.
Okay, thank you. Other speakers, please?
And I apologize because I missed this, but my understanding is it would be not sorry, Stacy Marciani, Meeting House Hill Road. It would not be legal to remove the description of the contracts, starting with each of which provides for. That couldn't be removed, given that the essential purpose of the article is just to send the contracts to the DOE. Which is essentially what Mr. Rhodes was saying.
Yeah.
That description of the contracts, even though that has nothing really to do with the warrant article, that would make the warrant article illegal in some way?
It's a very close call, just because that is part of the language if you're trying to change it. So it's a close call.
So the purpose of the warrant article is to get the public to approve or not the school board sending the contracts to the DOE. There is no mechanism in this warrant article for the public to vote up or down the contracts. So why a description of them?
And so, I mean, there's 2 purposes. As we said, it's the sending to the DOE, and it's also the minor amendments and take further action language. So
Right.
those
So-
are the 2 purposes. I mean.
So the
for-
language in the middle comes after and before
it's just-
those
yes.
things.
So you're talking about the
Descriptive language, starting in the 3rd line, with each of which provides for, with tuition to be paid by, which, as Mr. Rhodes said, it just convolutes the article, because it gives the impression that we are voting up or down on whether the contracts should be signed. And in fact, the contract's already signed and in place, and it's confusing.
I would say, I think it's, like I said before, I think it's important to have the term limits in there. Certainly a board 10 years from now could look at this and say, we don't actually want these to be our high schools anymore. So I think if you don't specify, there could be a lot of confusion in 5 years from now or 10 years from now about what we actually submitted to the DOE and what are our future high schools maintained by the district.
That's a very good point. My concern is that people think that they're voting the contract to approve or not approve the contracts, and that's
Yeah.
not the case.
I agree, and I don't know if everyone reads the voting guide. We are, putting a note to hopefully clarify that exact thing, but yes, it's confusing.
And I can further clarify. So for that just by having it in the warrant article, that means that the version that's going to the DOE, which has been signed, includes those provisions. So if you're making amendments from time to time, that's just some limiting language in there. So it's just making sure that that's part of the language that's going to the agreement to the DOE. Does that make sense?
It does. I mean,
So so it's a close
you
call,
could,
and
you
that's
could
one
also
that
say
the-
as signed by the school board on such and such a date, but.
Yeah, it's a close call, and the moderator can make a determination of whether he thinks it's a change of subject matter or not. But close call, I'm erring on the side of it would change the subject matter, but.
The risk of having a warrant article booted because it's not legal would be my major concern.
Yes.
So I would want to leave it per your counsel.
Yes,
Is what
so-
you put it down. That would be my concern. Because if it's not legal, then it gets booted and it's not in effect.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Still discussing the Ms. Black's amendment, please. Mhm.
I think I'm going to have to wait, but can I just offer this and you can shut me down? The concern about this being confusing, if you just take the sentence, shall the Deerfield School Board authorize the boards to submit to the State Board of Education for approval pursuant to RSA, the approved tuition agreements. So we're just switching the order and maintaining Ms. Black's, I mean, we may have to do that as a separate amendment, but I want to, if we're going to be talking further conversation, that might address some of our remaining concerns about this
Okay.
article.
Thank you. Other discussion on the amendment that Ms. Black has presented? Mhm.
I just picked up from what Jeannie said that this is the school board giving the permission they got to the State Board of Education. If this is amended, are we giving them what the voters intended?
Okay. Any other discussion on warrant article number 6 amendment from Ms. Black regarding adding high schools maintained by the district? Any further? Oh, okay. Okay. We're at school, you're raising your hand, I'm going to answer you. Okay, so if there's no other discussion, we're going to go ahead and take a vote. All those in favor of adding, per Ms. Black's amendment, adding the words after the RSA 194-22 to be high schools maintained by the district. And then it's going to continue on and take other and further acts as necessary. So we'll continue on. So the wording will be adding to be high schools maintained by district. All those in favor of adding that into the amended article, please signify by raising your card. Thank you. Please, for all those opposed, please raise your cards. Thank you. It passes. So this will be added as amended. Okay. Now we're back to warrant article number 6 as amended. Discussion. Let me just give this to our clerk.
Will Hubner, 1 Sunrise Terrace Lane. I completely agree with Jeannie Menard on her comments, and I'd like to see that amendment, and I would like to propose an amendment to simply replace the word approve with submit, which I think is what the school board said.
So that does say that. So we have this page, Will?
Yeah?
That has the new amendment at the bottom.
Oh, okay.
I know, it's.
Submit the
I'm sorry,
approved-
this
okay.
was very clunky,
All
but
right.
yes, we
Then
did.
Then I'll
we
defer to
did
Jeannie
this.
then for the good wording she had.
All right. Other discussion on amended warrant article 6. Jeannie, are you still interested?
If it makes sense, let's do it. If it doesn't.
Okay. All right. Let's go.
Jeannie Menard, Mountain Road. I would like to make an amendment. Shall the Deerfield School District authorize the board to submit to the State Board of Education for approval pursuant to RSA 194-22 the approved tuition agreements?
Period.
So what we're doing is we're just doing a substitution of
So you're
to
removing all
this-
the contracts, language around
Yeah,
rounding the
and
years?
just keep the rest of it, what has been amended, the same. I don't, so the remaining,
Okay, so you're just rewording, you're taking, you're just moving that sentence, moving that clause up to the top. I'm with you. Okay, good, good. Can I have this?
Yeah, just move, I mean, it's like,
Okay,
I
great.
moved this clause up here earlier, so we're moving more clauses.
Okay, good. Yeah, oh, that's fine. Yeah, if you can. Okay, so what we're looking at right now is we're literally just taking some of the words that are in the lower part of it and moving it to the top. It'll retain all the other verbiage to it. The goal was to get more clarity, if that makes sense. So as I understand it, and Jeannie, just make sure I'm getting this right. So it's the words, 1, 2, 3, 4 lines up, if you will, from the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4, with the words, after there's a comma, that starts to the State Board of Education. You guys all following that? Okay, to the State Board of Education for approval pursuant to RSA 194:22. Take that one phrase and pop that right to the first line, right after the word submit.
And with Kim's verbiage for to be high schools maintained by the district.
So-
It's going up to, I assume.
She didn't have that.
Oh.
But did you want that? Yeah, you wanted that.
yes, I don't want to mess the changes that have already occurred.
So keep that, okay, so we'll keep in the words, in the high school. By the district. Okay. All right, so now it will read, and please correct me if I'm wrong, shall the Deerfield School District authorize the board to submit to the State Board of Education for approval pursuant to RSA 194:22 in the high,
To be high schools.
to the high schools
To
maintain.
be high schools.
To the.
Be.
To be high schools maintained by the state,
By the district.
by the district, sorry. All right, and be high schools maintained by the district, the approved tuition agreements between Deerfield School District, right there? Does that make sense? So I'll read it over again. Yeah, it's a little confusing, so with the other men. Yeah,
I'm going to let Mr. Rhodes may correct. I didn't have the benefit of Kim's article with me, so.
Okay, so let's get it right. So what,
So procedurally,
If I may.
Please.
Mr. Moderator, I would think that the language prior speaker is recommending would go where the word each, which we've previously spoken about in the third line, that's where that would go.
Gotcha.
To be high
So-
schools.
Yeah,
So-
yeah.
Okay. So,
So we're moving 2 clauses.
okay, so we'll, to each of, Brian's initial district. All right, so Jeannie, can you go through to make sure that I've got this right now? So can you repeat exactly what you're hoping to accomplish, how it's going to read?
As long as everybody goes along with me.
Yep. So go ahead, can you read what how your warrant article is? I want to make sure that I've got it per what you're.
Can you read, I think you've had the benefit of,
Shall the Deerfield School District authorize the board to submit to the State Board of Education for approval pursuant to RSA 194:22, the approved tuition agreements between the Deerfield School District and the Concord and Pembroke School Districts, as well as Co-Brown Northwood Academy, as negotiated by the school board, and to be the high schools maintained by the district, each of which provides for an initial term beginning. Blah blah blah.
Bravo.
Does that make sense?
yes.
We're getting it. All right, great. Good job, everyone. All right, so
Teamwork.
All right, so we've got that. Does everyone need that again? You got it? We're good? Okay, so did we get a second on that? Okay. We got three of them. Can I just have one of them? Josh? Greg Whitmore? Greg Whitmore. Good, Greg? Okay. Greg Whitmore seconded. Okay, open for discussion. Any other discussion on this? No? Please.
A comment, is there any way in the future that we can, as we're making these complex amendments, because it's hard to follow, when I start writing it down, and it gets scratched out real fast, is there any way to have it on the screen, or somebody proficient, that can display it to us, so we can actually see what we're voting on?
Yeah,
and
I
not
think that's
having to
something.
guess what's going on?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
That's a helpful
I'm a 16-year-old
suggestion.
man, and it's going fast, buddy.
I'm a young guy. It's going fast, too. I'm with you. Yeah, that's a great suggestion. Yeah. And we got a volunteer already. That's great. All right. So any further discussion? Seeing none, let's go ahead and get our voting cards out. For all those in favor of the aforementioned amendment, I'm not going to read it again. If you, all those signify by raising your card. Any opposed? Love it. Passes. All right. Okay. All right. Any other amendments to number 6A or discussion, please?
I think it's point of order, but I would advise that in my 60 years of going to elections, the majority of questions with that kind of length are voted down. People just don't get the meaning. So I'm just recommending, when you put out your voter's guide, you can't lean towards yes or no, but you need to make it very clear what this is trying to do, because this discussion here today certainly shows the majority of people don't understand.
Thank you. Okay. Seeing none, we're going to go ahead and place warrant article number 6 as amended onto our ballot. I'll yield again. It's a little scribbly, so I can help you with it. Okay, number 7, warrant article 7 is to see if the Deerfield School District will vote to create a high school tuition expendable trust fund under the provisions of RSA 198:20-C for the purpose of unanticipated high school tuition costs and to raise and appropriate the sum of $140,000 to be placed in this fund, and further to name the school board as agents to expend from this fund. Majority vote is required. So we're going to have Ellen O'Donnell present this, please.
Yep. Hi. I don't know if that's on, if you can hear me. So the reason we're putting this in here is that when we made this new tuition agreement with 3 schools, we had quite a few students that came out from, they were homeschool kids, they were kids that were in private schools that wanted to move in and go to one of these high schools. So that was a lot of money that we had to add to the budget. So we're just concerned that, and this could happen very quickly, that before we do the budget, we're concerned that students could come out of the woodwork. We're required to pay their high school tuition. So this $140,000 is enough for about 7 students, and we got more than 7 students this year. I don't even know what the number is up to, but that's why we just want to have a trust fund to cover that, so we have the money for students that would be going into our high schools.
Okay. Warrant article 7 is open for discussion. Amendments, please.
One of the things I always say is, if you're putting this money in because there are students that you need it for now, I understand and I can vote that. On the other hand, I'm going to be 81, and I don't really want to pay for the future of this town, kids coming in. I think that we budget for the kids that are here every year, and we pay it, and we should.
Okay. Any other comments or amendments for warrant article 7?
Mr. Moderator?
Please. Yep.
I just want to clarify. So we've accounted for all of our enrolled high school students within the budget. This is for students that are currently unenrolled, that we are unaware of, that re-enroll as Deerfield students or high school students that we don't have tracked currently in the budget. So this is for those students that re-enroll within the Deerfield School District that we become obligated to pay for their education, and it's if they re-enroll prior to, or after we complete the budget. If we know about it prior to
So
the
if
budget.
somebody moves to town sort of thing?
Yep. Could be moves to town, could be a student attending a private school somewhere, could be a homeschool student, could be any
Okay.
number of factors, but it would be for students that are currently not enrolled in Deerfield that re-enroll as Deerfield School District students.
Okay. Okay, open for further discussions on warrant Article 7, please.
Marjorie Whitmore, North Road. I actually want to thank you guys for doing this. I used to work in surrounding towns that are K-8 schools, and we would see an influx of people moving in just because they wanted to go to Co-Brown. However, I don't see that happening here. I don't think we're that big, but I think it's great that you guys are getting ahead of the curve.
Thank you. Okay, other comments or amendments on warrant Article 7, please?
Greg Whitmore, North Row. So I think the fact that we have so many students re-enrolling really speaks to the success of the high school choice program. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on warrant Article 7, please?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Kevin Verrill, McCarran Road. I'm a little bit agnostic on this article, to be quite frank. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think we're going to see a huge influx, and I think that's why I voted not necessarily to recommend this, to focus money in other places. I think most of the people that have chosen to return back to the Deerfield public school system, which is a wonderful thing, have probably already done that, and really the math going forward is going to be what the student split is from one school to the next to the next between the three. But I have to echo what the previous speaker said. Is it's a testament to what we're providing our students this year, that we have people returning back into the public school system, and we clearly, just by student split, know that there's demand for other options. So thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Yep, okay. Any other comments? Warrant Article 7. High
Sorry, I
school.
lost my train of thought.
That's okay.
Anyway, working for those K-8 schools, what we would see is when those people did move into town, our K-8 would go on a budget freeze, and that was very detrimental. So I would hate to see that happen here for our K-8 school, so that we could provide for our high school students.
Thank you. Okay. Any final comments? Warrant Article 7. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and place that on the ballot as written. Warrant Article 8. Reads, shall the district authorize its board to negotiate a lease of property or an easement agreement with a solar provider on such terms and conditions as it deems to be in the best interest of the district for the purpose of installing a solar panel array and related equipment at the Deerfield Community School? Can you folks hold on from talking, please? In related equipment at the Deerfield Community School at 66 North Road, Deerfield, New Hampshire, and to further to authorize the board to enter into a power purchase agreement with a term not to exceed 20 years with provisions for a buyout of the agreement subject to subsequent appropriation on such terms and conditions as the board deems to be in the best interest of the district, with the understanding that the board may decline to enter into either of these agreements if it deems the terms and conditions not to be in the best interest of the district. Whew. Okay. Sorry, that was long. Zach Langlois is going to present this on behalf of the school board.
So, for those of you that are unaware, summertime at DCS is a very busy time of the year, especially over the last few years. It's when we get our projects done and we get work done on the facilities, or at least we try to. So over the last few years, as we've been making improvements, we have been looking at the future projects that we've laid out a number of years ago, and we are up to the point now where it is time to start this discussion about putting a solar array on the roof of the building here. So what we're looking at is
Please do not comment while somebody's talking.
So what we're looking at is approximately a 300 kilowatt system, which would cover basically the surface area of the roof, that would provide 100+% of the power to DCS. We have a couple of options that are available to us. One of those options is what's called a power purchase agreement. And what that would allow us to do is basically lease the space on the roof to a power or a solar provider, and then get a significantly reduced rate on the purchase that we buy back from them. So our roof would push electricity into the grid, and then we would buy it back at a significant discount. That is one of the options that is available. For us to be able to exercise that option, we need authority from the voters to do so. The roof was replaced last year. The roof was upgraded last year to be able to handle, and the underlayments were improved to be able to handle a solar array or a solar system like this. So we've already taken the first step in being able to prepare ourselves to be able to do this in the event that the community wants us to do it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so warrant article number 8 is open for discussions or amendments, please. Good afternoon.
Very interested in it, Zach, and this is what my daughter does for a living. She designs solar systems. The question I have is, don't we have like the nice embankments that would better hit the sun and not take a chance on breaking through? Is it a membrane again?
So the replacement roof is a non-ballasted membrane.
Okay.
Prior to this, we had a ballasted roof.
The problem is if the membrane is damaged, you've got leaks, and it's got to be fixed, and you're being taken off the solar panels. Whereas with the banking we have and the area we have, wouldn't it be better to put the solar panels on the ground?
So that's been part of the discussion the school has had. From what we can see from the contractors that we've discussed this with, the roof is the best place we have. The systems that are put on the roof are, they don't penetrate the membrane. It's a common technology or common method for installing panels on flat roofs. We're reviewing currently all of the different options that we have. And part of that review process is working with the contractors and the manufacturers of the roof that we have to see what their thoughts are as well on the proposals we have.
There is also, you can probably speak to this better than I can, there's a warranty on our roof because we just got a new roof.
Right.
And in order for that warranty to be valid with the solar, we have to install solar within 1 year.
So I guess to add on that a little bit, so the standard warranty that comes with the roof that we've opted for, it's a 30-year roof. If we install solar within 12 months of the completion of the roof, the warranty carries with the solar panel system installed. In the event that a solar array went on after that 1 year period, we would have to have the roof manufacturer come out and recertify the installation. But that's all part of this ongoing process. So this article simply is allowing the board to exercise the ability, if it's deemed what the path forward is, to enter into a PPA.
Okay, thank you. Errol?
Errol Roads, Church Street. Does this limit you to a power purchase agreement? And part one of my question. And part two of my question is, it sounds like it's not behind the meter. Is it behind the meter?
So this enables us to exercise a power purchase agreement. The board could also look at utilizing funds for purchasing the system outright. There is grant money that's available as well, and that's all information.
Better act quickly.
That's all information we're currently reviewing. The plans that we are reviewing, or the proposals we are reviewing, I believe they are all, I want to make sure they're all on our side of the meter, I guess is the best way to put that.
Yeah,
But I'm currently reviewing, as some of the other board members are, about 350 pages of submittals. So there's a process that we're still kind of going through on that.
Okay.
But the bids have both power purchase agreement options and outright purchase.
Yes.
So,
Okay, and
but
so-
we need authority to enter into a long-term lease agreement, so we couldn't.
Right, so it's not limiting, but now just
Correct.
on the economic side, it makes a lot more sense if you keep stuff behind the meter. So
Yep.
Thank you.
Wanted to know about that. Thank you very much.
Okay, other comments on warrant article number 8 for the solar array?
Kimberly Black, Meeting House Hill. I have grave concerns about putting solar on our roof that I've discussed at other meetings that the board has had, primarily starting with safety concerns and adding more fire where our fire and panel isn't currently completed since over the 3 years that we've known that there's been a defect. So with that in mind, my question is, if Article 8 is voted down, and I think Kendra just answered this from the prior speaker, that means we couldn't enter into a lease, like a power plan agreement with solar, but we could still purchase that and say do something at the property on South Road or not on the roof.
So this article is written for the address here for 66 North Road. So this has no impact with the property that we have over on Stage Road. That's a separate piece of land. So this is as it pertains to this facility here. This simply would give us the ability to enter into that power purchase agreement. If this article fails, the school board cannot enter into an agreement for a power purchase agreement. They would only be able to look at doing an outright purchase on a solar system. Would be their only option in that case. The other, I think, clarifying thing I want to make sure that we stress is you had made a comment about the fire alarm panel. The fire alarm panel was replaced 3 years ago. The fire alarm system has been fully updated, replaced, and installed. There is a couple of items that we're discussing with the fire chief. So the old system, some of those devices are also still active inside the building, but we have a completely updated and replaced fire alarm panel and system currently in, functioning, and running in this building. And the only current questions with the chief are some of the pre-existing devices and his interpretation of how he'd like us to handle those.
Okay, thank you.
Just redirect. Thank you for that comment, Zach. I was certainly shortening my comment to be more vague than that. Thanks.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, Leah McHugh, Harvey Road. So in approval of this warrant, essentially we're going to get solar regardless. And my question is, now that all the bids have been submitted as of, I think it was January 30th, is there going to be any discussion on cost, both whether we are going to install it? If we do go with the power purchase agreement, we're going to waive our ability to get the tax refund or benefit based off of the installation. So I'm wondering about costs and what those bids are looking like.
So I can't necessarily get into the particulars of the costs on the bids yet because they're still under review, and that would be inappropriate at this moment while they're currently under review. I will tell you we have 3 bids that we received. 2 of them included a power purchase agreement. 1 of them did not. They all did include an outright purchase as well, with calculations for returns on the investment, grant money that could potentially come back to us, and some other programs available from the state. As we go through that review, once that review process is done, obviously at that point the board will bring everything forward and discuss it in a meeting. But until that review process is done, we need to complete that process.
I would advise our taxpayers to consider the fact that we don't know what the price is going to be. I'm wondering, lost my train of thought. Hold that thought. So I'm wondering if it does come back to us installing, where that money is going to come from. Do you have a specific trust in mind?
So depending upon the outcome of this vote, at that point, the board's going to, and it will be a different member seated at the board in that case. At that point, it's going to be up to the board to determine how they want to move forward. This article is simply enabling the board, if they choose to pursue the project further, to have one additional avenue outside of a purchase. We have not committed to doing a solar project this year. That certainly isn't the case. What we're looking for is to be enabled if the board at that time chooses to exercise the power purchase agreement to be able to do that. The board may or may not opt to install a solar array. That's at their discretion after the election in March.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments regarding warrant article number 8, please?
Greg Whitmore, North Road. So it's the sentence, as it deems to be in the best interest of the district for the purpose of installing. So I think it gives a tremendous amount of power to the school board when, like as the last speaker was saying, we don't have any idea of costs of this. So I would think this would be a 2-part process where we allow the district to look into this, but then when we get that completed package with a price tag attached, that comes up as a separate warrant article in a future year.
So, if I may, as it pertains to a power purchase agreement, which is the question in this article, a power purchase agreement is no initial cost to the district. It basically guarantees us a lower rate on our electricity. We have the option down the road to buy out that system if we choose to, but the initial outlay is 0 cost to the district with a reduced rate on our power.
And the company that we would be leasing it from is getting that grant money. So we would be losing out on the grant money, but we wouldn't be paying any money down on the system.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Other comments, please?
Just a quick comment. So the money that is returned through the tax when you go to write off your solar system, is a good like 24 or 26% still currently. So that would be money that we would be taking back. So I just want that to be put into consideration when thinking about.
If the board exercised their ability to purchase a system, based on the information we have, there is a significant tax incentive, it's not tax, it is a significant refund or credit, I guess, is the correct terminology, available to the school, and that is some of the information that we're all kind of reviewing and weighing out.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other final comments? Warrant article number 8.
Kevin Verville, McCarran Road. The only thing that makes me nervous about this, and it's based on the discussion, is that because of the new roof, right, you have a year to do it for easy warranty. And when I hear things like that, I'm always afraid that we're going to rush into something because we don't want the roofing company to have to come back out and then potentially tell us no. And one of the things, my opinion, local government tends to do is to try to act too fast and not fully think through things, especially if they feel that there's some sort of deadline they have to meet. And that's the only thing that gives me pause based on all the discussion. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. Any other comments? Warrant article number 8. Yep. Hi. Please.
Kayla Stanford, Stone Drive. I just have a question. Do we know what the figure might be if we were to postpone looking into this now and we had the roof reassessed?
So the cost to recertify the roof or the cost of the project?
No, the cost to recertify the roof.
We'd have to discuss that with the roofing contractors. I think part of it's going to depend on how much further we extend out, whether we do it in a year, or 2 years, or 3 years, or 4 years.
Okay.
We do currently have numbers on the cost to do the project. Again, currently under review.
Yep.
This has been something, just for anybody that maybe hasn't been paying attention to the meetings or been part of the discussions we've had. When we started the project for the roof last year, this is something we were discussing then. This is something that we've been discussing for a number of years. I believe this community has been very responsive to solar, based on other action taken and the requests that we've seen within the community through various warrant articles to really look at starting to add solar projects to this community. So certainly this is a question that the community will be able to look at and review, and will probably give some indication of their desire to move forward to the next board in March.
I just want to say I rent from Porter's Electrical, so yes, I am definitely for the solar, just a matter of what time with this money that we're currently dealing with such.
And that's all information that we'll be reviewing as we go through the process. And again, the bids were all 100-ish plus pages long, so there's a lot of information, submittal information that we need to review, and that process is currently ongoing.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Any final comments? Warrant article 8. Seeing none, we'll place warrant article 8 on the ballot as written. Number 9. Shall the school district vote to rescind the provisions of RSA 40:13, known as SB2, adopted by the Deerfield School District on March 8, 2005, so that the official ballot will no longer be used for voting on all questions, but only for the election of officers and certain other questions for which the official ballot is required by state law, 3/5 majority vote required, and this cannot be amended, I believe, because this is prescribed by law, correct? This?
Yes.
Correct. Okay. So we're going to have that introduced by Mr. Langley.
So this article, we had on the ballot last year as well. It's a yes or no vote, and it's really a determination by the elected body to decide how they want to govern themselves. So back in the early 2000s, we switched from a town meeting form of government to SB2. That process, there was 4 or 5 or possibly even 6 attempts to convert from town meeting to SB2. Over the years, there has been a desire expressed by some people in this community to return back to town meeting, and this is giving the ability, if the community decides, to go back to that form of government. It's a yes or a no, and certainly I think everybody has strong opinions for or against, but this is an easy question to the extent that we're all invited and welcome to decide how we want to govern ourselves.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so warrant article 9 will open up for comments and discussions. Sir.
So Will Huebner, 1 Sunrise Terrace Lane. And I do respect that that it is a controversial issue, and I recognize that, and I respect those that have strong opinions, as I do. No system of town government is perfect, but SB 2 works well and ensures every voter and every taxpayer, every citizen has ample opportunity to get the most information, to get the greatest opportunity to participate in, and the final decision is protected by the secret ballot at our town hall. Consider what this would mean if this passed to members of our community who cannot attend the town meeting due to, for instance, serving our country in the military, working people who cannot attend, families with small children or livestock who cannot attend an all-day meeting, citizens who are infirmed or shut-ins, citizens who are traveling out of town. Can you even imagine 2,000 or 3,000 people at the size that Deerfield has grown to trying to actually gather in one building and debate with each other? This very meeting that we're having today is indeed SB2. We are practicing SB2 right now, and it's working quite well. So it should be the exclusive right of every person to decide how much money we will collect as taxes and how that money is approved to be spent according to the priorities of all of our citizens. I urge you to protect your rights by voting no on March 12th and defeating the warrant article number 9. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker regarding warrant article number 9, please.
Kevin Verville, McCarran Road. So all you got to do is look behind me, right? You guys remember what it looked like this morning? What's it look like now? Right. More than half? At least a third gone. They can't last that long. Even if we took the room when it's packed, what was it, 60 people, 70 people? Heck, I'll give you 100, right? Go 100. That is still a sliver of the population compared to the amount of people that will show up in March to vote. So if you want high participation, if you really want to hear from the vast majority of citizens, SB2 is the way to do it. So if I'm out of town, if a family member's sick, whatever, there's no absentee ballot, there's no opportunity for me to participate. If I work on Saturday, what if I work on Saturday? I can't come here on Saturday. Right? So my vote now doesn't count because there's no absentee ballot. There's no secret ballot, right? There's no secret ballot. And we're all looking around, we're watching each other, who's voting which way, who's voting that way, right? And there's a lot of people that are very uncomfortable.
Information, that's incorrect. We have secret ballots on the old town.
Okay.
Mr. Moderator, if I may.
Please continue.
Thank you. A lot of people are very, very uncomfortable coming up to a microphone. There's cameras, there's friends, there's neighbors, maybe there's people that don't think very much of you. And to get up and speak your mind, it is not easy. I was a shy, quiet little kid that didn't participate in anything.
I don't believe that for a minute.
You laugh. You laugh.
Don't believe it.
When I became a sophomore in high school, I came out of my shell. Before that, I was a very shy, quiet kid. A lot of people struggle with that. Okay? Well, off the record, we'll have that conversation. The other thing is, look at what we've done with a lot of the articles today, right? Complex, important articles where we've had multiple amendments. And so what traditional town meeting calls for is you pass that amendment and then you decide on the spot, right? Is this what we're moving? Here, we get to have the debate, we get to make the amendments, we get to move forward as a community, but we have a cooling off period. We have time between now and basically the middle of March to go back and think about these amendments, think about what these questions are now asking us. It gives us further time to ponder what we heard in debate, to talk to our friends and neighbors, to consider things. This is a slower, more deliberative process than traditional. I grew up in traditional town meeting. I grew up in Pembroke. Went to town meeting as a child. Couldn't wait to turn 18 to participate. Right? That's 3 minutes. If you want people to participate, I would say vote no on this. And this is going to fail anyway. We know that from last year's numbers. But vote no on this and don't vote in favor of voter disenfranchisement. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. Thank you. Next speaker on warrant article number 9, please.
I attended for many, many years the meetings of the boards in the school building, and it was just like here today. Many people left. By the end of the meeting, you'd have 150, 200 people voting the budgets for the town. Everybody had to pay those taxes. This law allows the majority of voters to vote their tax bill. Do I say it's great? No. But it wasn't great the other way either. My husband, who owned a television business, had to keep open Saturdays. It was his best sale day. He could then vote with SB2. I am for always everybody having a say. Unfortunately, most people don't come to this. So, what has happened with this? Excellent communication from our selectmen and our school board mailed to every home. We get a really good chance to be educated. And I want to thank them for doing that.
Thank you. Okay, next speaker, please. Warrant article number 9.
Greg Whitmore, North Road. So it's clear that the individuals that come on days like this have a vested interest in the issues that are being discussed. But I don't necessarily think that we are representative of the collective ideas of the town on any given year. And the number of people supporting any such topic are going to fluctuate greatly from year to year. So I fully support the current system we have in place, particularly with the size of the town and the fact that we really need weeks after this date to discuss with our neighbors how we want to vote on these issues. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Next speaker, please.
Kimberly Black, Meeting House Hill. I said it at the town meeting, so I want to say it here. Thank you for putting this question on the ballot. Mostly because if it does nothing else, it reminds me how important this part of SB2 is, being able to discuss with everybody, and also how important the voting part is. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other comments on warrant article number 9? Seeing none, we'll move it to the ballot, please. The last one, everyone. All right, let's see here. So warrant article 10. Shall the Deerfield School District vote to authorize indefinitely until rescinded the retention of year-end unassigned general funds in an amount not to exceed in any fiscal year 5% of the current fiscal year's net assessment in accordance with RSA 198:4-B, 2. Majority vote is required. Is this prescribed by law as well?
Not entirely prescribed by law, but most of the components are required, so there's not really much wiggle room.
Much wiggle room. Okay, very good. All right, thank you. So we're going to have Kendra Cohen, our school board chair, present this one, please.
Hi, everybody. So there was a change in the law, I believe 2 years ago, that allows school districts to retain up to now 5% of the net assessment for the district. We currently are authorized to retain 2.5%. And what I mean by that is at the end of the fiscal year, if there is surplus, we can, as a board, vote to retain funds in sort of an emergency fund. This would increase the cap, but it doesn't require or mandate that we put 5% into the fund. The board could elect to put any percentage up to 5% into our emergency fund if there is surplus.
Okay, so warrant article 10 is open for discussion. Any discussion on warrant article 10, please? Yes, good morning.
Yes, thank you. With all due respect, the chair of the school board left out a very important aspect of this. So if monies are retained, they are only retained for 1 year. And if they are not used within the 1 calendar year, they are returned to the taxpayer to offset taxes. So this is not an accruing fund where it's a growing trust fund. You can put the money aside for 1 year, and if there's no emergency, and it has to be an emergency, then the money goes to offset taxes. So don't think that this article allows for some giant fund to grow. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you.
Thanks for that clarification.
Thank you. Okay, other comments on warrant article 10? Yep. He's not speaking. Okay. Come on, Brian. You can do this. All right. Seeing none, warrant Article 10 will be placed on the ballot as written. And before we get a motion to adjourn, hold on. I just wanted to say thank you. There's a lot of very difficult topics that we talked today, and nothing greater comes from when we come together and be kind to each other. So I appreciate that. I appreciate everyone being here today and doing that. So with that in mind,
Mr. Moderator, move to adjourn.
motion second. All in favor?
Point of order.
Motion to bird. Yep.
Mr. Moderator, I noticed that this meeting did not have information from the school board that we normally get. The number of students in every grade, the number of teachers that taught, the salaries listed for each person. I would urge the next meeting, we have that
Have all
information.
that information. Okay. So noted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day, everyone. Thank you. We'll see you on March 12th. You guys need help with chairs?